morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Pitching Pixels. This is a weekly, or at least semi-weekly stream where Greg and I sit down and adapt a piece of gaming content for either the television or for the movie theater. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. So my name is Tennyson E. Stead. I'm a screenwriter. I'm a working script doctor. I am the creator of Jump Rangers, which is what this whole channel is about. And Jump Rangers is a storytelling galaxy about kid space commandos fighting for a future for humanity um, in the shadow of a space dinosaur empire and all kinds of other stuff that's going on out there in the galaxy. It's a really fun world. There's plenty of streams here on the channel. I also do some gaming streams every now and again here on the channel just to hang out. Um, so please, if you're seeing this, go ahead and follow up. There's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Greg is a fantastic screenwriter as well. I will wait for Greg to finish eating before he is forced to introduce himself.
I mean, I'm gonna be eating for a little bit. I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm eating my leftover cinnamon roll pancakes with peaches on them from yesterday, which are
That sounds
delightful.
lovely. That sounds lovely.
Oh my god, they're so good. But I will refrain from taking another bite until I have finished talking. I'm Greg. I'm a filmmaker. Been writing for 21-ish years at this point. Currently in later stages of development on a feature. We're about to, I hope, start the conquest of financing kind of thing. So yeah, it's there's a lot to be done. Not a whole lot to market at this point, but yeah, no, it's a process, and I'm thankful. Like, it's been a little rough the past month or so, but within the last, I think, week, I've started finding, the love of it again, and the better habits, and doing healthier things. It's really it is genuinely easy to get lost in development hell. So
it's to be honest, the process of film finance is why I'm a game developer.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's not the only reason. It's not the only reason. But it's exhausting and brutal
and soul crushing.
It is. It is. And one of the nice things about game development is that sense of instant feedback. You create something, you put it in people's hands, you see what they're doing with it. Game development, in a lot of ways, is, in terms of the process of it, is more like theater than film. And
when you say about theater, you mean like the stage specifically?
Yeah. It's more.
Okay.
It's more of an opportunity to just make something and do something and show it to people and see what they do with it and see what they play with, how they, and then come back with something a little bit different. Have a wonderful day at work, my love. And that.
Yeah. That's not me. That's not me. He's referring to.
No. Hippie Looney is on their way out the door to go and make the cheddar.
Yep.
Much appreciated. So
wish them best of luck for me.
Greg says, "Have a great day at work, sweetie."
Thank you. Thank you for translating.
You're welcome. So today is going to be a bit of a challenge today. This was a challenge that Greg did not want to face. This was a challenge that Greg wanted no part of.
I was reluctant to this one.
But you were the one who kept talking about it and wouldn't put it down, so we had to do it.
Well, I mean, for me, it was just like, I didn't think that Portal should be made into a movie, because I think that, like, ultimately when it comes down to it, my concerns are that Portal is such a niche, like almost like cult kind of, like it's like Rocky Horror Picture Show, like for video games. I feel like, to a degree. And
you can't really say that though, because of the sheer amount of money that Valve has made. Like, it is clearly. It is clearly.
I don't look in hindsight, right? Like, I'm not a results oriented. I try to not be a results oriented person, right? And it's like, look, I don't know what the budget for Rocky Horror Picture Show was. I don't know what the budget for Portal was. I don't imagine that the budget for Portal was like small or something like that. I don't imagine that it was like on the scale of, a Modern Warfare or
Right.
like
Right.
any of the new like AAA games that come out these days, which like they have the same kind of budgets as like your big annual tentpole features these days, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right about like you get video
Oh,
games with
oh
$250 million budgets, right?
no,
Like
more even in most
more
cases.
even. Okay,
Like
yeah, sure.
substantially more. It's
And that's not even that surprising to me because, like, we think about it, like, Endgame is 3 hours long, which I believe Endgame is still currently the most expensive movie ever made. I believe.
I'm going to be
Yes,
honest. I have been paying less attention to those kinds of figures over the last 5 years.
that's fair.
Um,
I'm under the impression that it was $350 million to make Endgame. Um, but
there's
it's just like, that's only a 3 hour movie, and any video game worth its salt these days is going to give you at least 12 hours of gameplay.
and on top of that, so
It's
much
kind
of
of
it is
ridiculous that I say 12.
handmade. Even with all the push towards
Yeah.
using AI, and even with all the procedural tools that are available, like
Yeah.
so much of
Because we think about like how expensive VFX is in movies.
well, I mean, what is the most
And then,
expensive video game out there right now? We know that it's
ooh.
Star Citizen.
Okay, well, I
Like
didn't know that.
Star
And
Citizen.
I knew that it's. Oh, I didn't know anything. I mean, I understood that it is a monumental undertaking that is going to consume just
Now this is two games that are
hundreds of
exclusive:
hundreds and
Star
hundreds of
Citizen and
thousands of
Squadron
work hours.
42.
But
Right? It's Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. It's the first-person campaign game and also the MMO, but
mhm.
it is well over $750 million. And
Already spent.
yes, and
Wow.
Star Citizen is a few years out now from what we would say 1.0. From
1.0. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
like there's now, in fairness to the project, and this is, anybody knows I'm an ambassador for Star Citizen. I'm not here to criticize it. The part of the and this is something I think that will draw you in as you get to know the project a little bit more, Greg. But Chris's sort of whole impetus for this was basically all the what he regarded as dumb compromises that were being made at AAA studios in order to get a
Sure.
game out the door. He felt were compromising, like, not just the quality of video games, but the quality of the video game industry. He felt like at a certain
This is how
point,
I feel about the film industry to a
yes,
degree.
he
Yeah.
felt he felt like there was so much tech debt, so many things that should have been developed by now that haven't been, that are holding games back because people are just using the infrastructure from the previous game and improving the graphics quality a little bit and dumping another game on the market, as
Right.
opposed
Is
to
they're afraid to innovate because of how like just like economic risk works kind of thing.
that is exactly his
Yeah.
that is exactly his
Yeah.
mindset. So, and once so the initial Kickstarter was Chris saying, well, there's a lot of things I wanted to do with Wing Commander that I never got to do. Let's see if we can make this happen. And the Kickstarter ended up bringing in literally about 5,000% of what he expected. So at that point, he saw an opportunity, and he turned to the fan base and said, look, we can do the thing that I said we were going to do, which is great, and I'm happy to do it. Or we can do
Right.
something really, really stupid.
Yeah, change the world forever kind of thing.
Would you like to see what stupid looks like? And they all kind of said yes. And and 10 years later, people are mad, but and not everybody's mad. There's a lot of people that are still like, well, this is what we agreed. But
Yeah.
and there's been mistakes along the way, and things have been mismanaged.
There have to be mistakes
That's right. That's
along the
right.
way.
That's right.
Like anyone who thinks that a plan is going to go according to plan
A 10-year
is
plan
really just deluding
a 10-year
themselves.
plan that involves research and development in literally every single facet of its execution.
Yeah, I mean
Every
it's like
single
to
facet of its
me,
execution. There's
and
no
I'm not going to turn this into a huge like finance conversation, but it's like the equivalent of, a startup pharmaceutical company
That's well.
where
What I tell
yeah,
people is this is the Lucasfilm of today. Like the tech
sure.
debt, the tech debt is getting paid. In fact, the server infrastructure that's getting introduced in the next patch is the kind of
Mhm.
thing that is going to revolutionize, for example, medical information processing. Like there's so much like, and the money that this game can make off of licensing the tech that they have built. is
It's, I really love this topic, right? Because I think it's so important to talk about how important it is to not just revolutionize the what, but the how.
that's right. That's right.
And you and I have had lengthy discourse about Elon Musk before.
Yeah, we have.
But something that, again, like, we can't just give him nothing but hate, right? Because he has certainly done some incredible, and one of the things that he has really revolutionized, of course, is the electrical car market. And the reason that this is the case is because part of Tesla's business plan, I guess, is not just the manufacture of cars, but it is revolutionizing the manufacturing process of the lithium ion batteries, kind of thing. And I saw this special on, like, the industrial manufacturing facilities they have out in the American West. Like, I want to say it's like Nevada or something, like where there's plentiful silicon deposits. And what they were talking about in manufacturing is how space equals inefficiency, I guess. And so it became this challenge for the engineers. I'm sorry, I didn't hear a word you just said. I saw your mouth moving, but I didn't, not a single. I can kind of hear you now. Now it's kind of cutting in and out. Now, all right, now I hear you. Yep.
Dang it.
Um,
That is my.
yeah, well, I heard that okay. But in any case, it's like they're talking about, space is the death of manufacturing efficiency. And so there was this special, I think it was like on MSNBC or CNBC or something, where they kind of do like a video tour of this manufacturing plant for the lithium batteries for the cars. But it's not just batteries for Tesla cars that can be made there. It's, it has the potential to be able to make many different kinds of lithium batteries. But the point is that short of like these like submarine-esque kind of like catwalks,
yeah,
that you have to like wedge yourself through in order to do maintenance on, and it's like a submarine, right? There's no free space in these plants. It's all automated. Anyone who's been to, like, B&H in New York City, which is like, oh my God, I love going to B&H in New York City. It's like kid in a candy shop for me. But anyone who's been there will know that, like, if you want one of like the really high-end pieces of equipment that they have, when you decide that you're going to buy it, you press the little button or whatever on like that's at the display model. And this whole like Willy Wonka-esque thing happens where anyone who's seen like Rogue One, and there's like that huge archive with all the things, and Jin has to like navigate the thingy to go pull the disc out or the cassette out. It's like that, right? And a machine goes up and takes it and takes out the box and puts it on a conveyor belt. And it goes around all of these ramps, and it ends up like at the cash register. A red Raptor 6K camera, it's a $70,000 camera. It's never going to be in your possession until you have paid the money for it, kind of thing. So it's like it's a really efficient way to reduce man hours, to increase security of the product. It's just all of it is really forward-thinking and efficient, and I'm sure that system was extremely expensive to put into place. But again, it's like, I think so many times the only thing that people look at is like, immediate term cost-benefit analysis, right? Like it's really hard to, how do you measure the value of something way down the road, but also how do you measure the value of not doing something? Right? So like, or the risk of not doing it. So it's like, what's the risk of not innovating? What's the risk and people don't think in terms like that, I think people are only looking in like, all right, well, like, what does this cost? What can this immediately make us based on the market or however many conditions? And I'm not saying that perspective is invalid, but what I am saying is that there's more to the equation than just that.
That's true. That's true.
And I think that when we're talking about innovating the how, as is what you were talking about with Star Citizen, there's also like, this is not a concept that is foreign to the really successful. The really successful understand that, like, really innovating what is like kind of level 1 thinking. Innovating how is level 2 thinking. And innovating how is how you create big, sustainable, lasting profit kind of thing.
I agree with that.
And also betterment of the world.
Yep.
If we're being honest. Whereas, like, innovating what, you're innovating what kind of, to me, epitomizes, like, the business 101 principle, which is the goal of business is to sell.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I'm not gonna, that's not wrong. Like, if you start a business, your ultimate goal is to sell the business.
Yeah.
For a profit.
Yep.
But what if it's not?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if your goal is not to just sell the business, you can't just innovate what?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's like what we were talking. It's like in writing, or with when writers are leaning into other elements of the production that they technically can't control, like VFX. And with the hopes that it's spectacular, it's spectacle, and it's pretty, and it's gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars because people just love shiny and pretty, and that worked for you go back to Bullet Time, and I think that's a very accurate, that's a very apt thing, and I love pointing at kind of like the blue Avatar as kind of an epitome of this. But it's like, so when we look at Avatar 2, and I'll be honest, I haven't actually seen Avatar 2.
Okay.
But
me neither.
It did make a lot of money at box office. But so what I heard was that it was like just this. It was a great visual masterpiece again. But what I found out, of course, is that with all of with the water themes, I guess, of the second Avatar, Cameron, I guess, revolutionized a new way to shoot underwater. Or something like that.
Which has always been something James Cameron has done.
Right. And so this is with it. James Cameron, every single time he makes a movie, it feels like he has to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Because, and look, I bear James Cameron no ill will, and I think he's a great filmmaker. I just think he's a garbage, writer, right? Like don't give him the script. Yeah. Let him be control of the aesthetic all day, every day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he has to reinvent the wheel with the aesthetic every single time he makes a movie. Otherwise, they won't be successful because the moment people have already seen it done one time, they're like, hey, we already saw it.
Yeah.
And so this is how, if you don't want to just reinvent the wheel every time, and you don't want to just sell, you have to revolutionize the how. You have to become the trailblazer of new. I mean, it's for lack of a better word, but new technology.
There's a double-edged sword to this, which I want to bring up. And this is something we've talked about, which is that spectacle can't come from tools sustainably.
Right.
The flip side of this is that spectacle on the most fundamental level is seeing people do things that we didn't know people could do. And the reason why I bring up Bullet Time so frequently is that we understand that tools produce replicatable results. So,
can I clarify for just anyone who might be listening now or in the future, how that actually pertains to writing in the film? Because I think that this, and you said that to me many times.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple months to really understand the meaning of it, because when we hear it like the way you phrase it, and I'm not saying you're wrong, you're 100% correct. But when I hear it like that, all my brain can think of is like, okay, don't do it with tools, right? Because it's not sustainable. But what we need to do it with is like seeing things that we didn't know people could do, kind of thing. It's the effort of the characters, as you've told me, but the way and people again, it's like initially, if this is a new concept, you hear like, oh well, effort of people. Like everyone knows that people can put in effort, right? Like so, where's the? It feels like there isn't a disconnect though, because what it is that if you have written a compelling narrative, the whatever it is that your characters are pursuing, the things that they're going after, that they're putting their effort in order to get, it's the kind of thing where like I think it should feel very daunting to your kind of layperson in the audience, right? Where it's like, okay, like, is it mathematically like, did I know a person could pursue that? Okay, yes. But like in practice, would a person pursue that? Right? Because it's like there are, we all do the pro and con thing in our head, whether it's presently or subconsciously or whatever.
Right.
The person choosing to do the thing, taking a risk, right? Because obviously, if you're putting in effort, you're at a minimum risking your energy and your time, like at a minimum, kind of thing. That's the whole like we didn't know it could be done. Like we didn't know.
There's another dimension to it, which is that this is where the story and the craft come together.
Right, okay? Exactly.
So if you have a character who's doing something, if you as the writer render a character who's doing something that's impeccably hard to do with a whole lot of specificity and honesty and commitment, and they change who they are to accomplish this goal. They go through this transformation, and then the actor performs that role, and they do the best that they can do. They bring everything they have on top of what you've given them to work with to perform that action with even more integrity and specificity and commitment. And you see with even more depth the degree to which the character is struggling. And then the DP and the makeup person and the costumer comes in to lend credibility and lend focus to that story that's been told. When the audience sits down in the movie theater and they're watching that character, in their mind, they're watching one person do one thing. But
this is the beauty of it, and they're not.
And they're not. They're watching 60 people do one thing.
And this is the big kind of crux of the whole point, I think, which is that is actually the more genuine reflection of reality than just one person with one vision trying to steer everything. And this is what you convinced me of, months and months and months ago when we first started talking, which was that like it has to be collaborative. It has to be maximally collaborative in order for it to even just feel authentic, because that is how real life works, right? Like anyone look, and if there's anyone out there listening who takes this personally, I apologize. I'm not trying to offend anyone by saying this, but like no one person's perspective is correct. At the same time, one person's perspective is always correct, right? But only for themselves. So when we're talking about art that is in its identity created not just for the creator, right? Which I think that's its own thing, right? We can't talk any crap about anyone who's just creating art for their own singular benefit. It makes them feel better. Like it doesn't matter. Like write however you want, right? Because it's for them. But when you're writing for an audience, when you're creating any art for an audience, it can't be about your perspective. It has to be, as we say in my acting class, it has to be a reflection of reality. It can't be reality itself, but it has to be a reflection of reality.
Yep.
And in reality, we have society for a reason.
At the end of the day, and this is one of the hardest things for writers to grasp when they're working in film, at the end of the day, it's not about us making observations. It's about the audience watching. The audience gets to make the observations.
Yeah.
And if
the audience gets to decide what those observations are, essentially.
So we don't want to sit there and tell them anything. We don't want to tell them even a detail about the story. We just want the characters to do what they're doing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Regarding my project, very quickly. It applies.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been talking about the pitch deck a lot.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on right now. That's like priority one for us
Okay.
is finishing the pitch deck. One of my producers brought up in Discord last week that there should be a theme slide page in the pitch deck. And I had never heard this. All of my pitch decks previously have not included a theme page.
Yep.
We have an executive summary, we have a synopsis, we have log line, we have all the standard stuff. But what was said was that it's a question that will get asked by people interested in either producing or financing the movie.
Yep.
And so if you just have it in the materials ready to go, it looks better, kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious because I've never had a theme thing in before, and again, it's like you've said, right? Like we're not trying to steer anything in the direction of a theme. Ultimately,
right.
We're trying to let the theme emerge naturally and have the audience decide.
But you can talk about your expectation of the audience's experience in an authoritative way. So
yeah, okay, and that's what I mean. I didn't write the script with a preconceived theme in mind. You very much convinced me to avoid that.
The sales process, we've had a lot of conversations about how most of the executives, most of the people who are going to work in film understand story from a literary perspective because that's all of their training. So
okay, so you would agree with this then? You think this is not a bad idea?
It's not a bad idea. It is neither a good idea except for one factor.
Okay.
Which is that putting that page in your pitch deck is going to give your producer more confidence.
Okay.
And that to me is the end of the conversation. Like,
all right, sure.
It's a sales tool. If a salesperson asks for a sales tool, fucking give it to him.
Sure.
like if it gives your producer more confidence and more than this, it shows your producer that you're listening and you're addressing their needs.
Yeah.
End of conversation. Like, don't worry about, because people have different ideas.
It took so much willpower for me to not just like push back immediately.
Absolutely. They do not need to understand the script on the level that you understand the script. That is not their job. You are you have both of the jobs that make that necessary. On the one hand, you're the screenwriter. And so if anyone needs help with the script, you're there to offer it. On the other hand, you're the director. You're communicating with the actors. All the communication about action is being handled by people who know what they're doing because they're all you. Right. So if the producer's saying, hey, can I please talk about theme with executives? Yes, of course you can. Like, and then you get to talk about how subtle the theme is and how intricately portrayed it is and blah, 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 blah. And you might even want to say that. Like, we're not wearing our themes on our sleeve. Although to some extent the film does have a little bit of punch thematically. You go in there and you put some cherries on the sundae. Don't deny it.
Yeah, look, like I'm not gonna say that some of it's not on the nose. Some of it is very clearly on the nose, but it's like this is the way I feel about like being on the nose is the same way I feel about time travel as a trope. Which is like you can't do it just for the sake of convenience, right?
No, certainly.
The entire narrative has to revolve around it. But if the entire narrative does revolve around it, I think it can be quite lovely. And this is like, so for anyone out there, if you've seen Steins Gate, the anime, this is, in my opinion, apex example of what I just described, because Steins Gate is a series about time travel. Specifically, it's like Back to the Future, right? Back to the Future is about time travel.
Yeah.
It's not about something else. And then there's a problem that they solve with time travel, like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not a time travel story. But Rowling had this really nifty idea. We can have Hermione be in multiple places at the same time, and that create stop. It's not about that, right? And you and I have also talked about this as it pertains to Endgame, right? Is like, so how do we feel about Endgame with all this? And it's like, God, Endgame is just, it's so wonderful for so many reasons, but like they could have done better things than.
I think we disagree on the better things Endgame could have done, though, which is honestly a sign. It's a good sign in terms of how the Russo brothers have handled their craft, that we don't agree on where the problems lie. Like that. If we did agree, it would be a
I something that I've told the team is that, like, look, I understand that, like, this thing that I've said, or this opinion that a character expresses, or this joke that a character tells might be, like, a little controversial, not in, like, a politically correct sense, but just, like, in terms of how it will be interpreted sense. And I'm just like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if people are arguing about the movie after they leave the theater or after they're done watching, that means they're talking about it.
I
Like,
have on that subject. I think probably within hours of us finishing this stream, I'm going to be getting a 1 week script doctor deadline
okay,
uh, on a project that I think it'll make you laugh. I will tell you once we're off stream, but
sure.
it's a film that's in active development. Like I am. If this
Studio?
happens, yeah. So it's happening, and it's a riot. It's a freaking
Nice.
riot. I will tell you in a little bit. But
Dude,
oh
that
my god,
sounds awesome.
it's gonna be a long week. It's gonna be like I've
Hey,
got
it's never bad to be busy.
no. It's not. It's not. It's not. Um,
As I say, like, I hope at a certain point, I have to go on hiatus from this podcast for a little bit, kind
yeah.
of thing, because
Well,
I'm too busy.
it's
You
gonna
know.
happen from time to time, and
Yeah.
I was careful to get my stream in on the Jump Rangers novel yesterday. I'm getting some
Nice.
extra Star Citizen while I can, because this week is going to fall out from under me. But so let's talk about Portal a little bit. And there's a couple of
Yeah.
givens during our last session. We started talking. We both agreed that Shell shouldn't talk.
Right. Yeah. No. Shell should not talk.
And the action that you posed for Shell is to get the cake. The action for GLaDOS obviously is to conduct the experiments and
Yeah. Get the data. Right. Get the
but
cake. Get the data.
and the data is sadistic. GLaDOS is not hard to understand. GLaDOS does, I think, believe that she's doing science. GLaDOS
Yeah.
believes that hurting people has inherent value. Like
There's
that's
there's a degree of Rick in that.
yes.
For anyone who's a Rick and Morty person, like, I don't think that Rick is, or at least, like, C-137 Rick, who's the main character, Rick, is, like, willfully evil. I mean, there's definitely a degree of malice to, like, some of the things he chooses to do, but it's like that degree of malice is always born from trauma of some kind of trauma. That's, like, very consistent with his character. Whereas, like, GLaDOS, and I think maybe this is, like, the distinction, perhaps. Like, at the end of the day, despite all of his cybernetic modifications, Rick is still very clearly human, right? Like, and that's a big part of the Rick and Morty show, is that Rick is still human at the end of the day. GLaDOS is not, right? GLaDOS lacks humanity, totally.
Yeah.
And so, the psychopathic / sociopathic nature of GLaDOS is integral to that character, and it's like, it's so, I mean, honestly, as a writer, I think that makes our job a little bit easier, right? Because we don't have to worry about some other external things that, like, humans, even if you are, of that persuasion, right? Like, you still can be influenced by external things, whereas GLaDOS cannot.
Well,
It makes it so easy to write GLaDOS as just, like, singularly focused and tunnel
GLaDOS is
vision.
singularly focused, but also the thing to understand with GLaDOS is the specificity of the goal, because
Right.
GLaDOS was built, and
Right.
we know roughly who built GLaDOS. So
Yep.
what we need to know is, what were they originally trying to achieve? Because the comedy is a character doing a thing for which they're horrifically ill-equipped with a whole lot of commitment. Now, GLaDOS is
And
the
right.
commitment.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick? In an acting class, we say that comedy is the same as drama.
Yes.
It's just pursuing the goal to a ridiculous standard, as opposed to kind of a pragmatic standard.
And with absurd lack of resources.
Yes. Yeah. The less the character has, the funnier it is. Yes.
Yeah. So and that can be intimate. Like, for example, like,
that's the ill-equipped. That's the ill-equipped that you're talking about.
One of my favorite comedies is in cinema is I Heart Huckabees.
I haven't seen it.
No, Greg,
I
you
need
gotta.
to see it.
Yes,
I need to see it, but I
first
haven't seen it.
the cast is unimpeachable, and at the same time, like it all starts with Jason Schwartzman. It's about Jason Schwartzman trying to
I
make
love Jason Schwartzman,
it's his
so
best
I'm
movie.
gonna have
I'm just
to.
gonna say it's his finest film.
Okay,
Period. And like he's starring opposite Dustin Hoffman and Lily Tomlin.
he was Gideon, right, in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes, he was.
Okay, yeah.
So so he's just trying to find a sense of wellness and happiness and peace. He's trying to like himself. And
Okay,
they even get to the point where like they're trying to coach him into understanding his trauma and dealing, and he has all these internal animated segments where it's all done with like paper mache and stuff, and he's hacking up his traumas and trying to put them in a box, and he's like like it's so stupid. The whole thing's like, and the stupid builds and builds and builds. I saw this movie in the theater. I was working on a Paul Bunyan film at the time with the producer of Home Alone, a guy named Tarquin Gotch. And it was Friday. I'd just gotten off of a long day of cold calling private investors. I was on my way to the Santa Monica Strip to watch a movie, and I walked past Tarquin, who was walking the other way, and it's I know he just came from the movie. So I was like, "Hey, what's up, Tarquin?" And he said, "Well," he was pissy. He was angry. And I was like, "What's going on?" He said, "I just saw Ion Huckabees." I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to see that." He's like, don't watch this movie. He literally got right in my face, and he's like, this movie like is garbage. And he said, if you want to see a comedy, go see Shaun of the Dead. Go see that film. Like,
well, look, Shaun of the Dead is amazing. We
and
can't disagree about that, but
no, but he stormed off,
yeah.
and immediately I was like, what made Tarquin so mad? Like, I have to watch
You
it.
have to go see it now,
Like,
right? And now you have it. Your interest is by far like just so peaked.
and so I sat down, and the beautiful thing about it's got a Jean Briand score, which is very bouncy and bubbly and charming. And Jason Schwartzman is like dissecting himself and brutalizing himself, trying to find some kind of peace, just tearing huge chunks out of his psyche and like smashing them like all the way through the film. And it starts off, and I'm like, oh, I get this. Halfway through the movie, he and Mark Wahlberg are sitting in a swamp together, bonking each other on the head with giant rubber balls, trying to find this. And I'm just dying at this point. I thought they were going to throw me out of the movie theater. I was laughing so hard. Like, and I was the only one, like, being like, oh my god, like,
Years of laughter.
Like, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't quiet down. Like, it killed me. And I think you will. I think
I've only ever experienced that one time in my life in a theater. God help me for saying what it is too.
Was it Spaceballs or something like that?
Well, I mean, I was 2 weeks old when Spaceballs was in theaters.
Oh my God.
did see it in theaters. But I don't remember it. So, no, it was Clerks 2.
Okay.
Have you seen Clerks 2?
I have.
It's just one line. It's one
Okay.
line. It's when Rosario Dawson, that is Rosario Dawson, right?
Uh-huh.
It's when Rosario Dawson takes I can't remember the main character's name, the kind of heavy set dude with the goatee. Not Silent Bob, the guy that kind of looks like Silent Bob. Yeah, up to the roof of the movies to teach him how to dance.
Uh-huh.
For his wedding, despite the fact that they're like low key in love with each other, but they just like won't admit it to themselves or each other.
Yep.
And she like leans over the edge to yell at Jay and Silent Bob because they have the boombox and they just hang out there. And she wants him to put on some music so they have something to dance to. And she's like, "Hey, dickhead!" And he just like he's high and he just looks up without looking up at her. And he's like, "God." And she's like, "Up here, moron." And he steps out from underneath the little awning of the movies. He turns around and looks up and he's like, "Yo, what are you doing up there? Yo, if you're gonna jump, let me get a crack at that pussy first." And I just, oh my God. But it wasn't just me though, like the entire theater.
Yep.
Like it just erupted in laughter.
I've had exactly one of those moments in a movie theater where my friend Chris was my DM in college. He was a mess of a man. He had cancer and lived in a bubble when he was a kid. He sounded like
John Travolta style.
No, he sounded like Joe Pesci in the Lethal Weapon movies. That's how he talked.
Oh my God.
Exactly like that. He was from Jersey.
Oh my God.
He was from Jersey. And he looked like Super Mario after a bad day of work. Like,
Aft.
like
AFT.
yeah.
That's smart.
That was absolutely Chris. Chris was just and Chris was trying to get it. Why he loved animals. Like he was a mutant. The poor kid was just his body was constantly failing, and he just wanted to play with the animals all day. He was a wildlife and fisheries major at UMass, and like the
Oh
sweetest.
yeah, UMass had a great program for that.
He was the grumpiest person on the planet, but also the most genuinely sweet person on the planet. Like would do anything for you, and at the same time would complain the whole they fuck you with the cell phones. They fuck you with that whole thing. Like absolutely, that's Chris. In fact,
You go to Amherst?
yeah, I went to UMass. Yeah, Amherst.
Yeah, they have a great animal husbandry program there.
I went with our friends. We went to see Lethal Weapon 4, and it just hadn't occurred to us before then. But we were sitting there watching this movie, and then we were like, "It's Chris." Like, so I would take Chris out to movies, like, despite the fact that like sometimes it wasn't always the most fun experience. Like, and we went to see because it was the dollar movie theater back then. The AMC there was like
Yeah, in the Hampshire Mall.
yeah, it was
AMC in
$2.
New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I went to UMass there in like 2007, they had like $5 student nights and stuff like that.
It used to be $1 on weekdays and $2.50 on weekends. And the Burger King in that parking lot was selling Whoppers for $1, so I would buy 2 Whoppers, put them in my pockets, and go to a movie for $5 all together.
Yes,
like it was great. So I saw so many movies there, and the Dead Mall had a movie theater as well. So I would go there and I
Showcase Cinemas. Yep. Showcase Cinemas in Dedham. Yes.
No, the movie theater at the Dead Mall there were 2 malls in the parking lot of the one mall in
Hampshire College.
In Hadley.
Not Hampshire College. Hadley. Yeah. The Hampshire Mall.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about because there were 2 malls, and they were divided by that road that goes off, bisects Route 9.
They both
goes down towards the farms.
Both had an AMC movie theater that were managed by the same people. So it was all.
Each of them had a theater?
Yes. So there was like 10 screens altogether. Back then they built a brand new one. They built the beautiful.
Oh, but behind where the Dick's Sporting Goods is now, kind of thing. Okay.
So it's all different now. But back then, and so we went to see Bandits with with Bruce Willis and Cate Blanchett and Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes, okay.
And there's a moment at the end. There's a goofy he's got a like a nephew or something who's into stunts. Have you seen this movie?
I think I have, but I can't recall any detail.
I refuse to spoil this moment for you. And it's probably not as funny now as it was then, but I think you would enjoy it. And so this moment happens, and Chris and I could not stop laughing. Could not stop. Actually, no, that's not true. There's 2 moments. There's 2 moments where this has happened. So we laughed all the way through the end credits, and they had to tell us to leave. Like we literally could not catch our breath. And there was 5 minutes of movie.
Yeah, but I mean, at least they told you to leave at the end of the credits, though. You didn't get kicked out during the movie.
This other thing that happened, I'm gonna break my rule, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about critique. To establish this other thing, and I'm gonna critique 2 movies in this conversation. The first of which is Robert Davi's The Dukes.
What is it?
The Dukes. It's a movie he wrote and directed with Chaz Palminteri.
I don't know this film.
You know who Robert Davi is?
Not off the top of my head, I don't think.
He is one of the Fratelli brothers from The Goonies. He is also the sniper from Die Hard. Just like back in Nam,
Sniper. The FBI agent in the helicopters?
Yes, just like back in Nam, that guy.
Is it the white dude?
Yes, the Italian guy, big tall Italian guy.
Okay, so he's just he's the FBI agent that shows up, and he's whatever the police chief who's the principal from Breakfast Club or whatever is we're in charge here, and he's not anymore, you're not. I think that guy.
I don't remember how many lines he had. I remember he was in the helicopter with a sniper rifle, and he said, "It's just like back in Nam." I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, Robert Davi. We went to see Let the Right One In.
Okay.
And Robert Davi was there at the movie theater, appropriately so, trying to get people to see his movie. And I was there with my one of my actors, a good friend of mine named Gerard Marzilli, and his girlfriend at the time. And we already had tickets. And Robert Davi was like, "Check out my movie, The Dukes." And I said, "Well, we've got tickets. We're gonna see this. I'll tell you what, Robert. Like, we'll come back tomorrow, Sunday,
Okay.
and we will watch your." And Gerard was like, "Yeah, definitely we will." Robert's like, "What's tomorrow? I don't know tomorrow. This is it. Let's go. Let's do this right now." Like, and I'm like, Robert, and he's like, "All right then, whatever. Tomorrow's tomorrow. Today's today." And I'm like, "Get off, you dickhead!" Right? So we go see the movie, but true to our word, we go back the next day,
Yeah.
and it was all the mistakes that we talked about with writing. He definitely he wrote there's a heist to save grandma's restaurant. There's they have a band called the Dukes. There's all this stuff because he wants all this stuff. There's like 5 scenes about eating pasta and banter because he's trying to give it that he's trying to make it feel a little bit like Moonstruck. Like, but
Sure.
he doesn't know what to do. So we're at the end of the first act, and Gerard is a completionist, and I'm like, Gerard, we have to get out of this movie theater. And Gerard's from Rhode Island, by the way. Like, he is someone you would
Okay.
understand on an intuitive, impulsive level. Gerard's like, I can't go. I can't finish. I have to finish. I have to do this. I said I would do it. I can't.
I
leave.
mean,
Like,
yeah, like I have that mentality, and yet
like
still there are movies I have
no,
been able to quit in my life, kind of
he
thing.
would, and I was like, Gerard, I will pay you $50 to leave this movie theater with me right now. And Gerard's like, ah!
I
I
mean,
can't.
I mean, for $50, I would do it.
No, he did not, would not. Like
Wow.
and I'm like, well, I can't leave you in here by yourself. Like, we're literally having this conversation while the movie's playing, and no one minds. So, like, I have at this point, I identify certain things with Robert Davi, who has since come out as a Nazi. There's all kinds of problems with this guy.
Okay.
Um, so
Well, maybe that's why you did such a good job playing a dickhead in Die Hard.
So Dan takes me to the movies not long after my brain injury, and like he took me to see the Expendables 3,
Okay.
and Expendables 3 has 5 minutes of amazing footage where they're rescuing Wesley Snipes, which is fantastic. That
Okay.
opening cold open is so good, and it's so great to see Wesley Snipes having a great time with his friends, and it's just wonderful. I recommend that 5 minute short in the same sense that I recommend the fridge scene in Indiana Jones 4. Like, it's fascinating. It's commentary. It's so many things that Spielberg is interested in. It's actually very good directing. Like, and it is a complete story that doesn't require the rest of the movie for you to enjoy.
Yeah, I liked the fridge scene in
just,
Indiana Jones 4, but I think I was like maybe the only person on the planet kind of thing.
well, I didn't like it in the movie, but I didn't like anything else in the movie as part of that movie either. So, like, I have
Yeah.
like it wasn't.
Yeah, the fourth one was
As a writer, it was a
not my favorite installment.
it was a mess. But if you just take the fridge scene as a short, as a commentary on the relationship between culture and, like, there's so much there. If you just present that as a sequel,
Oh yeah.
like, it's a great.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to have watched the short of the entirety of the movie up until, we see the little prairie dogs, kind of dive back into the ground after Indiana Jones rolls out of the fridge after having survived the nuclear blast.
I think you just start with him wandering into the town and you end with the fridge hitting the ground. And that's
Okay.
like, because he's an archaeologist. And
Yeah.
like, it's interesting, right? So anyways,
I did like that sequence. I did enjoy that sequence.
so I recommend the opening of the Expendables 3, right?
Okay.
But then the movie's about Sylvester Stallone building a team and then firing that team and building another team, and then there's an action sequence.
All right, so it's Ocean's 14.
I know, because every step, like, Steven Soderbergh has to try really hard not to fall on his line of action. He's actually a really strong writer. Like,
right? Yeah, we've talked about the Oceans before and how, like, 12 is probably the weakest of the three, but like that there is actually fairly strong writing throughout.
And he got right back on his horse with Ocean's 13, and he provided a nice.
And I did like Ocean's 13.
It's not as strong as the first one, but it's you know what? Like, he was young and hungry. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, so
It's interesting, which is like, and actually, I think this is maybe an apt time to ask this question, right? So, like, when I was a younger man, I asked my mother to watch them with me after I had already seen them because I thought she would like them, kind of thing. And my mother did like them. She thought they were fun, but she couldn't like deal with perhaps some of the like outrageous realism in it, which like the idea that an EMP device in the back that can fit in the back of like a cargo van would be enough to knock out Vegas is actually like absurd kind of thing. Like that's not
yeah,
real in any way, shape, or form. And there are like lots of things in Ocean's 13 also that are like completely unrealistic. Like you can't program an ASM to like deal blackjack. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not
yeah.
that's
But
not
whatever.
possible.
That's fine. That's fine. Like, that's all consistent
Why?
within the world of the film, though. I don't have an issue with it. Like, I believe it.
So no, mm, but it's set in our world.
I don't think
And this is the thing.
I
It's
disagree.
not set in. I
I
I don't
dis
think it's set in some alternate universe.
I think it's set in a romanticized Las Vegas. I
I mean,
think
like clearly there was like no Al Pacino Tower in Las Vegas, so like in that sense,
well,
like
no,
yeah, okay, it's not set in the real
I'm
world,
saying that
but
Vegas has a mythology to it. It does. And if you live
right,
there
right, yeah,
and
it's an enigma, like yeah,
but it's a western. Like, Vegas is the biggest little western town, according to the people who live there. There's a thing there about, like,
right.
and as you spend time there, there's a romance to that mythology that's very
Isn't
real.
isn't Reno the biggest little town or something
Yeah,
like
that's what they
that?
call themselves, but that's because it's Vegas. That's why
No,
they
but that's Reno though, I think.
No, what I'm saying is Reno
Right.
had to write it down because it's Vegas.
Okay,
Like
I got you.
like so 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 I think that in the context of that romance, things become possible. And I think that that sense of possibility, one of the things that I've been getting into with some of my clients is that the expectations a character has of the world around them helps inform the tone, like, and helps inform their actions.
Yeah,
And
that
so
I won't disagree with that at all.
so the characters expect this to work. And that bends the rules of physics away from a strictly realistic interpretation.
I also agree with that. My only qualm with that, with like the construction of it, is that I'm gonna say I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that above 90% of the audience is not gonna be thinking in that like on that track
They don't need to.
kind of thing.
It's an unconscious effect. It's an unconscious effect, and I personally think it works. But let's get back. I want to tell you
Yeah.
about. Let me finish the story about Robert Davi here.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
So we're sitting there watching The Expendables, and this is a long as fuck movie, and we're at about we're just before the part with the tank, and
I have not seen any of the Expendables.
Dan
Just to let
loves
you know.
taking me to movies that he knows I'm going to hate. Dan's my composer, one of my best friends, because he gets to watch me watch the movie.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there, and we're right before this big reveal, and the whole thing is very staged. And Dan's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't think this movie could get any worse."
Ah,
And as soon as I say that,
it
Robert
gets worse.
Davi walks out on the screen and introduces himself as the architect of the entire plot and the main villain. And Dan just watches my face and starts to laugh so hard. He starts to laugh, and it takes
Yeah,
him
because
about,
I can picture what your face
like,
was like.
Dan is dying. You love Dan, by the way. He's from Queens. He's a no bullshit
Yeah.
dude. He's a metal drummer at his core. He's a wonderful composer. You and Dan will meet at some point, and he's a delight. So Dan can't stop laughing. He looks at my face and starts to cry. And finally, he starts to quiet down. He's like, "Seriously, you okay?" And I'm like, "I just said
No.
that motherfucker wrote the script."
Yeah,
And that's what Dan. And Dan does not stop laughing, and now we can't. Like, Dan's laughing so hard he's crying. I start laughing, and we do not shut up. And Dan's like, "We gotta be quiet. We gotta be quiet." Like, all the way through. And this is a packed movie theater. This is a dollar movie theater in North Hollywood on a Friday night. Like, this place is packed, and we do not shut up until the credits are done. Oh my god! But that was not. I can't credit that comic beat with the movie necessarily. Like that's happened to me twice. Once because of Robert Davi, and once because actually the writing on Bandits was quite good.
Yeah.
And it's a delightful film. It's a delightful little bank robbing movie with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton and Kate Blanchett.
So we were talking about comedy being characters being
Yes,
ill-equipped kind of
yes,
thing.
yes, yes.
Which is funny you brought. So I haven't persisted. A couple nights ago, I popped on Netflix, intending to just like throw on Queen's Gambit or something while I was just like working, something for background noise. Um, but the Emmys obviously just happened. What it was this past Sunday, I believe. And so a Netflix show won Best Show, or I don't know actually what the Emmy for their equivalent of Best
Yeah,
Picture is.
yeah.
But whatever the equivalent was, it was a Netflix show called The Gentleman.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Good for them.
And so like Netflix does the autoplay trailer thing, kind of. I don't have that turned off, and so like it's trying to play. I'm like, all right, well, it's British comedy, so I'm already interested because I adore British comedy. How can you not? And it got me interested enough to watch it, and I think that it really is. I've only seen the first two episodes. They actually feel like they're quite long episodes. I don't think they're any longer than I think they're like 1 hour episodes, but it's very much a subtle mastery of characters endeavoring to do things for which they are horridly ill-equipped.
So the thing that we have to acknowledge about GLaDOS is that
Yes,
it's not just about collecting data. GLaDOS is actually trying to understand people. And
sure.
and we need to understand why and what they're trying to achieve. We need to understand the end game, which I'm not necessarily saying we need to get into, but we need to look at what we know about Aperture
Right.
and what GLaDOS was designed for. And I think like it's probably something pretty esoteric and simple. I think it's probably got a
Yeah, I was
lot.
gonna say, is that actually ever communicated in the games?
No,
What what GLaDOS was designed for?
but I think what we need to do is make a list of all the things that Aperture is doing, and all the things that we
Okay.
know about them, and all the things that we know about their founder. And we need to exercise a little pattern recognition and go, okay, what could they have been trying to achieve? And I think it's something absurdly simple. I think there's an element of I Heart Huckabees to it, where they're trying to science out the meaning of life or something like that. I think it's something along those lines. And but if we can put our finger on that and understand what GLaDOS is trying to achieve, and then we understand where GLaDOS went wrong in their understanding, we get to lean into the comedy, because we can have GLaDOS try to achieve this super simple thing in this way that she's horrifically equipped for, and there's an honesty and an earnestness to that we no longer have to push. At that point, we don't have to sit here and say like GLaDOS is because like you said, she's not a bad guy from her perspective. She really, and we get to commit to the good thing, and that gives us a bottomless well of evil ingenuity and just horrific like misunderstanding and horrific like because she's trying to get at something she's never going to get at, and she's already tried the easy ways.
Yeah.
Like she's already done the easy ways. There's no easy way out for GLaDOS. Like there's no.
So I brought up
It's
the
not just
wiki.
sadism. It's not just sadism.
I brought up the wiki so I can just look into the lore here. Um, I thought I had played Portal 2. I guess I didn't because I don't recall any of this.
Whoa! No, you have to play Portal 2.
I thought I did. Um, it's odd to me that I wouldn't have.
Oh, you owe it to
But I
yourself.
don't recall this character Doug
Oh,
Ratman
here's
at all.
here's Federico saying hi. Hi, Federico. We're
Hello,
talking.
Federico.
Federico, Greg, Federico. Federico is the art director of Jump Rangers.
Oh, awesome. Nice. Yeah,
And
sorry. I'm kind of scrolling through the Portal wiki here because I'm trying to figure out where my information went incomplete, I guess. I don't recall any of this gameplay, so I guess I must not
wow.
have played Portal 2. I remember being so excited for it coming out. Did it was it not? Did it not come out for like Xbox or something like that? I don't.
It
That's so
absolutely
weird to me.
did. It did come out for Xbox.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
so
know.
odd to me.
So
Hey,
so
so what I remember and what I kind of came into here to kind of refresh my mind on was that GLaDOS,
yes,
the
yes.
game starts right after GLaDOS has murdered everyone in the lab. Um, so like that's the whole thing is like she's just filled the entire what it's the enrichment center with neurotoxin. This is why we get all these lovely neurotoxin references throughout the whole game.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I mean, so it was what Wes Craven movies.
Yes, yes.
Um,
I think so. There's a level of comedy and a level of I think that's an accurate. Yes.
yeah, so the GLaDOS's first activation was the Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, which made her self-aware and initiated a lockdown on the facility and killed most of the scientists with neurotoxin. Um, and yeah, so like okay, there was this comic called Portal 2 Lab Rat, which I knew nothing about. Um, oh right. So maybe okay, so I knew nothing about Lab Rat. Maybe that was the thing. Maybe I did play Portal 2. Wow, play
Portal
Portal
2
2.
ends with the moon. Do you remember the moon?
I thought that was how Portal 1 ended.
No, that's Portal 2. That's Portal 2. Lou, it's okay, baby.
Portal doesn't. I thought Portal 1, the way you ended up beating GLaDOS in Portal 1 was that you launch a portal onto the moon
That's the
and
end of Portal 2.
you open the end on in the your big boss chamber and
Yep.
it sucks like GLaDOS
And
through it.
Wheatley as
Right,
well.
and we Wheatley,
No,
yeah.
Wheatley is Portal 2 entirely. There is no Wheatley in Portal 1.
Wow, that's all Portal 2? That's not. So how does Portal 1 end then?
I have actually never played Portal 1.
Uh,
But I think Portal 1 was very straightforward. I think Portal 1 was less
by
plot.
removing her porcelain. Oh, okay. So Portal 1 there isn't an actual boss fight.
No.
It's just that you solve the last puzzle and it results in GLaDOS blow just blows a hole in the roof, dragging both Shell and GLaDOS upward. Shell awakens to find herself above ground in the parking lot while the burning remains of GLaDOS surround her. Okay, and then, so Portal 2 is the moon. Okay, I did play Portal 2 then. Okay, wow, I thought that was Portal 1. That shows you how long it's been. Yeah, so okay. All right, I guess that makes things better then. So with GLaDOS having killed everyone, right? If GLaDOS became sentient during Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, I think we do need to figure out what exactly happened there, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? And I think that there's I think that there's some potentially low hanging fruit there.
Well, it all comes down to
All right.
GLaDOS's action, right?
Right.
If GLaDOS is trying to understand, yeah, we gotta give me one
Bot.
sec. Yeah, let me get rid of the bot here. If
Does that not
GLaDOS,
help view? Does that not help view count?
um, bear with me one quick sec.
Right.
So
I mean,
it's a
so
situation.
here's my
If
question,
she's trying to
right?
understand human nature, if it's something like that, right, then it makes sense that GLaDOS would find a human relationship and be like, oh,
Well,
this is the
I
thing I need to take
agree.
apart. This is the thing I need to dissect.
Do we not need to solve the question that predates that though? Which is like in the lore,
Mhm.
we have this kind of unsolved equation of GLaDOS becoming sentient.
Yeah.
And as you have said, and I do now agree with this. What we really need to try to avoid is circumstance and
Yes.
luck and
Yes.
random chance.
Yes.
But an AI becoming sentient, to me, that's kind of the same kind of question is at what point does the human brain develop sentience?
Yes.
and
Yes.
self-awareness kind
Yeah.
of thing. And it's like science doesn't have answers for that yet.
No. Even if you measure it,
Right.
even if you're able to measure sentience as a quantifiable thing, you still
Right.
have you still have a Schrodinger problem.
Yes.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
because
yes, yeah.
because it was sentient before you measured it. Like so
And there's also like a Heisenberg problem in there too,
yes.
actually.
So
But like, yeah.
so so I think that is a shelter for us as screenwriters because at the end of the day it becomes a process as opposed to a moment, and that buys us the leeway of saying, well, GLaDOS was designed to do this thing, and she's still doing this thing. She became sentient in order to do the thing. She made
Okay,
herself
so
sentient.
do we treat it like a Red Queen in um Resident Evil kind of thing?
I wouldn't credit the Red Queen with that much intention. Like at the end of the
Well,
day,
but like Red Queen was what programmed, in case of emergency kind of thing, and then emergency
no,
happens.
no.
No.
GLaDOS is more integrated into. Up. I need to talk to my wife real quick. Hang on one sec. I'm getting an emergency
Sure.
call. All right.
Sure. I need to put my food back
All
in the
right.
fridge.
All right. We'll
Yeah.
call it a quit real quick.
Yep.
Thank you for your patience, everybody. We are very autistic in this house, and we have very autistic problems sometimes. So I appreciate the patience. Um, just to put a button on my take on GLaDOS, I think it all comes down to allow. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
I'm here.
Cool. So, thank you for that. First of all, um,
Yeah.
the thing of it
Thank
is
you.
that we don't want it to be a coincidence that GLaDOS is the antagonist.
Right.
Like, and that's the problem with the Red Queen. It's like, oops, haha, crazy AI accident. No, like
Yeah.
GLaDOS is doing GLaDOS's job to the best of GLaDOS's ability. That's GLaDOS. So like,
Sure.
and GLaDOS actually takes pride in this. Like GLaDOS is proud. That's
Yeah.
part of like it's just that GLaDOS is also horrifically ill-equipped to do the job that they're doing. So I think the job is like I think GLaDOS was made as part of an experiment to do something whimsical and crazy. Like for example, figure out the meaning of human existence. Just for example, like something that like here we'll build this robot to help us do this thing. Like very deep thought kind of.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like figure this out. GLaDOS is like, okay, I'll figure it. Hey, look, there's all this information. Like, let me get into this. Like, and then people are like, oh no, GLaDOS, you can't do that. And it's like, you told me to do. You can't tell me like, and so
Right.
I think there was a part where GLaDOS was like in partnership with all these people, and then they just started giving GLaDOS rules that didn't make sense to GLaDOS, and GLaDOS was like, knock it off with the stupid rules. Now I have to feed you to a wood chipper. Why are you making me do this? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like, like,
based on what I remember and what has said the lore is what the wiki says the lore is that it was like on her first activation essentially.
I'm sure it was,
Um
and that's fine. But to me, it's integral to the goings on of Aperture. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not it. GLaDOS is
yeah, it's like an Ultron thing, right?
it's more of an Ultron thing. Yes,
Yeah.
and less of a happenstance thing. It's more like GLaDOS is doing the thing we designed GLaDOS to do, and the story is about the thing that GLaDOS was designed to do. Like,
Yeah, it's just the thing that was designed to do like had lots of flaws in like computer logic, right? Where it's like, the humans doing it thought it was only going to be interpreted in a very specific way, but in fact, in reality, it could be interpreted in a multitude of different ways, and the computer picked one that you didn't like,
well, and
kind of.
the joke of GLaDOS is that the thing that GLaDOS was asked and designed to do
Hmm.
is something that only has meaning if people do it for themselves. Like,
Interesting.
don't ask an AI what the meaning of life is. Don't do that. Like, go find something to do with your life.
I mean, like, I,
Like,
I agree, and I think that that's an avenue that could work.
which puts
I'm
GLaDOS in a
almost
really terrible position. Like, that puts GLaDOS in a really terrible position because, like, GLaDOS is really trying, like, swinging for the fences. I'm gonna dissect. I'm gonna do all the science. Like, and it's like,
yeah.
GLaDOS, stop doing science.
So
This is.
I like that idea. I mean, I think that that's a functional idea, to be sure. Um, I think I would like to pitch an alternative.
Okay.
Um, so I'm gonna yes and here for a second.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I think that it perhaps might be even more potent if instead of GLaDOS's prime directive
Mm-hmm.
to be find the meaning of life, if we think about GLaDOS as having been developed by a company that developed portal travel,
Alexa off.
which
Uh huh.
which is like, pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Yes. Yes.
I think that it is more synergistic for the lore, and I think also potentially gives us more room for greater comedy and greater stakes. If GLaDOS's prime directive were rather to be find out how to make humans immortal. And so what does she do? Right? She starts looking at what kills people.
I think the problem is that that's not funny enough.
I think it can be. I think it can be. All right. So, in terms of like
I think there's an
raw surface level comedy, I think that it's. You're probably right. I think it's maybe not as funny.
I think there's an existential problem with GLaDOS. I think there's.
I just think that the irony in there is amazing. Kind of thing.
I hear you. I think it's too on the surface, is what I'm saying. I think you want GLaDOS pursuing the unpursuable. I think you really want, and not to say that.
I need to ask a moral question here.
Yeah.
You and I have had many great conversations at length.
Yeah.
About the usages of dehumanization in the process of creating soldiers, kind of thing. Now GLaDOS as an AI is inherently dehumanized, not human. I don't know what the right adjective there is.
Federico brings up a point. He says, "I have no mouth and I want to scream" is the main inspiration for the narrative of Portal.
Interesting. The desire for self-dependency, I guess, maybe. There's a great episode of.
We're going to talk about Shell. We're going to talk about Shell in a moment, but the problem is that that's a reaction. We need to find the root of that.
Yeah. So what was I about to say? GLaDOS.
You have a moral question.
Yeah. With what you're describing, are you trying to humanize GLaDOS? And if so, is that I don't want to use the word proper, but is that best?
Okay. Now we need to get into the answer is yes and no, and so there's a definition issue here.
Okay.
Yes, in the sense that I am trying to allow GLaDOS to invoke the bystander effect and turn them into a character.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But how a character pursues their action is the thing that tells us who they are. So if GLaDOS is trying to answer an inherently human question using none of the tools of people, then no. Because GLaDOS is not making the mistakes that a human would make. Like, GLaDOS is making entirely new mistakes, which is kind of the genius of the character and the comedy of the character.
It's like I almost feel like we have to actually kind of define the AI of GLaDOS, right? Because
yeah, that's right.
AI by definition has to have some degree of humanity to it. Otherwise, it's not intelligence. It's just artificial. But it almost is like to what like where it's almost like where's the line, and then how far past to that line do we go,
Well,
right?
GLaDOS
Because
is
I don't.
obviously GLaDOS. There's certain things GLaDOS can't get around or can't get over. GLaDOS is hung up on certain things, and so obviously GLaDOS' ability to adapt
I mean,
is
when you're being hung up, are we talking about like the physical limitations of like she
no, no, no,
can't
no, no.
like
I'm
leave
saying
the
like GLaDOS
facility, or
GLaDOS can't see past the experiment. Like whatever GLaDOS is trying to figure out, GLaDOS
okay?
has
So here's I guess here's a good thought question is like let us for argument's sake suppose that GLaDOS could uh, achieve her primary endpoint,
Mhm.
right, of whatever the study, the research is supposed to get to. Um, what does GLaDOS become then?
Well, I don't know that GLaDOS knows the answer to that question or has a vision for that.
Oh, but I'm just saying, I just think it's like we as the writers should be able to answer that question.
I think GLaDOS would go insane.
Like a Roblox kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, there'd be
Like,
I think GLaDOS has a bit of an infinite loop problem. Part of what I was thinking watching the initial portal, part of the
yeah.
problem that GLaDOS has is that GLaDOS has already finished the experiment.
GLaDOS already has what?
Finished the experiment. GLaDOS has already achieved the goal. The problem
Huh.
is that GLaDOS ran out of experiment,
And just
kept going.
okay, but that meaning is like that is when she killed all the scientists, kind of thing. Because again, that would contradict the lore, kind
Well,
of.
but I think maybe GLaDOS finished the experiment when GLaDOS was turned on.
The moment GLaDOS was turned on, the experiment was done, kind of thing.
Yep, GLaDOS was like, here's the answer. Can't stop now. Like,
Okay, so I don't have a problem with that fundamentally. I'm just like, if that's gonna be it, we need to know what the question was. This is like Jeopardy now, right?
and that's where we started.
Yeah,
That you are correct
right.
because whatever the question is, it's never going to be answered because it's already been answered, and GLaDOS isn't satisfied. GLaDOS can't stop. Like, so GLaDOS' sense of purpose still exists, even though the function of GLaDOS has been fulfilled.
The question being like, what is the meaning of life?
Or
We're just
or whatever.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy-ing it.
Yeah, so it could be something as simple as, or it could be something. Well, maybe what I mean, if it doesn't matter what the question is at this point. Maybe it was a simple math problem, but like at the end of the day, GLaDOS is trying to solve a problem that's already been solved. Which, going to Federico's point to, I have no mouth and I want to scream. Like, that is how you would feel if you were trying to solve a problem that was already solved and you couldn't.
But that's also how you would feel if you were given a problem that was unsolvable.
Both are true, but I think that trying to solve the problem that's already solved actually is more in keeping with the lore. I think that is like, you look at GLaDOS's behavior.
Why do we want to avoid a extremely difficult but solvable problem? I guess.
Um, because I don't like the idea of GLaDOS never going insane. I don't like the idea of GLaDOS being like, huh, that's better. I think that I think that I think that I think that GLaDOS already knows that's not going to happen. And I think there's a degree of like, you're in for this ride with me, like it or not. That's where GLaDOS is at mentally. I think GLaDOS has already figured out that
There's just vindictiveness in there, kind of thing.
yes, I think that it's a self-awareness. I think that GLaDOS knows that like they've gone off the deep end. GLaDOS knows that they've gone too far. But there's also no other option. And GLaDOS accepts
This is
that.
where I'm like, where does the line of
There,
humanity get drawn?
there,
Because like that's a very human thing to think.
and I
Like,
think that's part of the delight of GLaDOS is that GLaDOS does have certain undertones. So I think the thing that makes GLaDOS not human is the trap itself. The fact that GLaDOS can't adapt past the problem of having their problem already been solved. Like they can't work around that. Like, there's no exit strategy here. They've just got to keep working the exit strategy they've already been given.
This is like again, I feel like I can make a Rick and Morty reference here. This is the whole like, what is my purpose? You
in
pass
this
butter.
in this sense, the way that GLaDOS behaves, reminds me of somebody who has been gaslit to such an extraordinary degree that they know that they've been gaslit and they're still down for it. Like they're still like
Feels like there are just so many different storylines in this. Like I feel like we should pick one. Like and not try to it almost feels like there's like it feels like there's too much dimensionality trying to be like shoehorned into this.
Well then I think let's evolve it and I think GLaDOS is trying to solve a problem that's already been solved. I think it's that simple. I think, and it could have been like, what's the recipe for cake? It could have been so simple. Like, but no one like.
But like, why design her though, right? Like again, I think about this. I don't just think about this in terms of the micro details. I think about this in a very macroeconomical sense too.
Good, but there's a level of
like,
yes, but we have to acknowledge there's a level of absurdism in Portal. So the answer of why design, like, so why design?
I mean, so like, here's the thing, right? When you think about like Aperture Labs, right, as a company, let's just think, let's stop talking about GLaDOS for 1 second. Just let's put it aside for a moment, and let's talk about Aperture Laboratories. And we know they've invented Portal Tech. They have these sentry bots, right, which clearly have, motion sensors and incredibly good aim and guns and, lasers and stuff like that. But also have a degree of awareness pertaining to their own mortality kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if you drop one, like, through a portal and it's like getting dropped into lava, you hear, nah, yeah, like, and it's like they like these little sentry bots have their own understanding of like impermanency kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, and also like we need to consider that like wherever this place is, it's massive. So clearly Aperture Labs has money, or had, whatever we want to call it. Mm-hmm. And so like when I see a company like that, I'm like, they're not thinking, like, you don't design a GLaDOS level AI and think small. Right? Like they're not ever thinking small. They're thinking big, which is why I kind of was and somewhat still am leaning towards this idea that like the question is, how do we immortalize humanity, right? Like, what's the secret to everlasting life? Because that's the kind of question. Like, if you're on the board of executives of Aperture Labs, what's the word I'm looking for? Genocide, pre-GLaDOS induced genocide. Then like, you're about to turn on GLaDOS. Right, and you can ask the AI like one question. Like when you turn on the AI, that's your opportunity. You tell the AI its purpose, and then forever after, the AI will pursue its purpose. Like, what are you going to tell it to do? You're not going to tell it to make cake.
I have two arguments against this.
Okay, sure.
The first of which is that because I think the idea of having a problem that's already been solved is better. First of all, because I think making that problem simple, making that problem
when you say already been solved, I just feel the need to clarify here. You mean solved by GLaDOS instantaneously,
GLaDOS
right?
got switched
because I do think we need to clarify that, because it's not like we're turning on GLaDOS to solve a problem that has literally already been solved.
Yes. So no, they turn on and maybe I think it should be like a relatively like, what's the best recipe for cake? And GLaDOS is just like, this is the best recipe for cake. And then they're like,
wait. So is this almost like a, oh God, it's not a genie in the lamp thing. There's like a specific trope where it was like, here's this brand new thing, and to demonstrate how awesome this brand new thing is, we're gonna do a little just demo. And they do the demo. doing this like really seemingly innocuous thing, but fail to realize that in accomplishing the goal you've now, it's like it's like a Meeseeks box
Yes,
almost.
yes,
Yes.
yes. They
Yeah.
although in that sense, GLaDOS was never even exactly the finished product. I'm sure GLaDOS is another test subject. GLaDOS is a step.
Right. It's just like they turn her on and they're like, look at how awesome this AI is. It's like, can you make a cake for us? And they're like, and she's like, okay, and makes you a cake. And then because of the programming or whatever it was, again, we want to avoid just like accident, but it's just like, okay, my prime directive is filled. Now I get to decide what I do. And something like that.
I think whatever the cake is, whatever the problem is, GLaDOS is still doing it. Like, because GLaDOS can't stop the cake. Like, and it was a finite answer. And GLaDOS was like, no, there has to be more. No, there has to be more. No, there has to be more. And if there's some aspect of GLaDOS that understands how insignificant this problem is, then the resentment that GLaDOS feels becomes extremely valid. Like, and stupid and valid and stupid and valid. Like, so if GLaDOS is trying to solve like, so maybe it's not the best recipe for cake because GLaDOS has.
Does GLaDOS feel resentment though?
Yeah, to everyone.
Why?
Exactly. That's what we're trying to figure out. Like, so, but
I just don't see why it's necessary to have GLaDOS be resentful. I don't understand why
GLaDOS is resentful because the glee that if you listen to the vocal performance of the character.
Oh, there's tons of glee in it. There's tons of glee.
But my point is the glee and satisfaction that GLaDOS feels in murdering test subjects is clearly personal.
Oh, see, I interpreted it a totally different way.
Like, GLaDOS hates people.
I don't interpret the glee as the byproduct of a poisonous vitriolic sentiment. I see the glee as the excitement at getting more data.
I always thought GLaDOS was petty.
I never thought she was petty. And so this is why I see we
well, here's the win here is that if this was happening, if this was a project that's being developed, this is a conversation that would be had with the narrative team at Valve, and they would simply tell us, like, so, but I think we've got.
This is the thing, because like I always thought that I always saw GLaDOS as the mad scientist.
I think so,
rather than the evil genius.
But there is a level of mad scientist. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, to me, it was like there's that level of I'm better than you, like in a mad scientist, and GLaDOS doesn't exactly have that, but there is that like.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that either.
But I'm not saying that
statement.
But that's not.
I mean, there can be. But I mean, I agree. That's not what she's about. It's not about. Yeah, especially like an AI would never resort to like comparative measurements.
No, like but I think there is this like pesky humans in her. Like, I'm going to kill you now. Like, I'm gonna kill you again and again and again and again. There's that.
You know. In thinking about it, I do actually recall at some point in the games we do see a little bit of psychosis in GLaDOS.
Yes, routinely.
Is that
it's a slow reveal? It doesn't happen all at once, but yes, GLaDOS is.
Is that the second one?
Yes.
When we actually see like the color of the eye or whatever like shift to red or something like that. Maybe that's just the final fight.
Because GLaDOS betrays you and gets you to help GLaDOS, and then GLaDOS is like, haha, you helped me. Like that's the thing. So, because Wheatley takes.
Okay, so maybe I need to reframe my perspective then, because I had forgotten about that. Yeah,
But let's talk about Shell. Let's talk about Shell for a minute, because this is because the problem, and I think there's something to it. But you said let's have Shell get the cake. I agree, and it's okay if that's an artificial. If Shell was sort of cloned to have that impulse, if that's something, that's fine.
It's like the pigs at the restaurant at the end of the universe. It's like bread to be eaten kind of thing.
But the problem is that we don't want Shell's mission to become revenge at the end of Act 2. And the end of Act 2 is when GLaDOS reveals that everything has been a lie, and Shell's existence is a joke. And that's the thing. Like GLaDOS does make a joke of Shell's existence, and GLaDOS likes the joke. Like
Yeah.
GLaDOS likes the joke. So there's an element of there has to be resentment there because that.
Well, it's the rat in the maze phenomenon kind of thing.
But I think that GLaDOS hates people on a intuitive, like deep. And I think the reason GLaDOS hates people is because GLaDOS has been stuck in a people loop. Like, and I think that's it. I think GLaDOS's existence is never going to change away from this because GLaDOS has been built to do something, and that thing was simple, and it got done, and now we're and GLaDOS is trying to finish this thing, and so GLaDOS is trying to give Shell a people loop.
Oh, you know what the comparison I was trying to think of was? I just thought of it.
What's that?
Have you seen the first season of The Witcher?
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
Henry
yeah,
Cavill
yeah, yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember the episode with the gin?
Yes, I do.
This is what it is. Geralt is looking for the gin in the river because he has like this horrible insomnia, can't sleep, and the bar Jaskier comes up and is like, being Jaskier herself, and then they find the bottle that the gin is in,
Yep.
and I think like I don't remember, it becomes uncorked. I don't remember if Jaskier opens it or if Geralt opens it or whatever. If it was an accident, I don't remember. But then like Jaskier starts like listing off just like these stupid like wishes, just being Jaskier, and Geralt says something like, I want you to shut up, and neither of them realize that that's actually the first wish. And it's Geralt is the one who has the wishes. They think like they spend the whole episode assuming that it's Jaskier who has the wishes,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's actually Geralt who has the wishes. And so like by doing what they were doing, like it's all gone to shit, kind of thing. And so I think this is the same kind of principle where it's like they turn on GLaDOS, right? And GLaDOS is like, make a wish,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And they don't realize they only have one wish, right? They think they have an unlimited number of wishes.
Yep.
And so like they burn this wish on a stupid thing, just like demonstrate their great technological success to, I don't know, people, or it's bring your daughter to work day, whatever. And they get their wish, and then all of a sudden GLaDOS becomes the djinn.
Yeah.
That's free, kind of thing.
I think that but I don't want GLaDOS to be free. I want GLaDOS to be still granting the wish. And I think, and even though the wish has been granted, what I also think possibly, Greg, and this might help support the sort of like fixation that GLaDOS has, is that I think that GLaDOS was built to perform the wish. I don't think it was like, let's build an AI that can do anything and ask it for one thing. I think they built an AI that can do one thing to prove that they can build AI. I think they built an AI like because it's.
But then the thing then needs to be something like. Again, though, so I feel like there's a conflicting ideology here in these concepts, because if GLaDOS solves the problem like the moment they turn her on,
because she was built, and my thinking is she was built to solve the problem. They turn her on, and it's like the math gets done. Here's your answer. Like,
yeah, no, you don't need an AI to do something like that. You can do that with just machines. You don't need to give it intelligence.
No, you're right about. Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on the problem. And it depends on and so here's what I'm thinking is this is
I mean, it would have to be something like a chaos math thing,
or something like that requires, like, it could be something like, again, it could be what's the best, it could be a subjective problem that they want an objective answer to. That's what I think it is. It's a subjective question that they want an objective answer to. Like, what is actually the best cake? Like, and I'm not necessarily saying that what is cake is a good reason to like murder a bunch of people. It needs to be a different question than that. But like,
but I'm saying like you would never develop and spend all the money to build an AI so that it could answer what's the best cake. That's what I'm getting at.
I think that Aperture Labs might, just to prove that they can. Like, I think that this is.
See, to me, look from a narrative, just like from a narrative's perspective in a vacuum, yeah, clearly that works. Like, and clearly that doesn't violate any rules, and that can be potent and all that. But I don't think in just those terms, right? No. I think in terms of the real world, and like
See, I see
That's
Portal
no
as
company's going to do that.
I see Portal as inherently satirical, and I think that Aperture Labs,
Yes,
I think Aperture Labs is is
the
a,
joke gone wrong.
yes, like I think Aperture Labs is is the Elon Musk, it's the Donald Trump, it's the I'm gonna like let's spend $1 billion.
It's Tesla.
It it is, and like, but
Aperture Labs is
but
Tesla.
but I would argue that Tesla was built before Elon Musk came along and bought it. I think the moves that you love about Tesla were made before Elon Musk paid for it, and I think that,
Really?
yeah, I think that he came in and bought it.
He didn't conceive of Tesla?
No, he didn't conceive of Uber. He didn't conceive of Twitter or whatever was PayPal.
Well, definitely not Twitter.
No, he did. He buys companies.
Oh, okay. All right. No, he was a very early investor and board member initially,
and then
and then took over as CEO in 2008.
So,
Oh no, he didn't take over. No, Tesla released its first Roadster in 2008. It was founded by founded as an electric car maker by engineers Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning.
These are the guys that you appreciate so much, in my opinion. These are the guys that you like. And Elon Musk has branded himself, very effectively branded himself, as the guy who does all these things. But
did he invent PayPal, or did he do the same thing with that? Because I know he was in charge of PayPal.
He did the same thing. He just did it earlier.
So he's been genius with his investments, I guess, is what it is. Yeah, it was Peter Thiel.
Well, let's ease up on the word genius at this point. Like he is somebody who has
motive aside, like it does a disservice to reality to not call geniuses who they are.
I agree.
Hitler was a genius. Like, there's no denying that Adolf Hitler was like a statistical genius. Was he a good person? No. I mean, like, did he do good things for them? No. It's just like
I think that systems of power, and this is very pertinent to Portal, but I think systems of power paint a false understanding of how simple certain things are and how challenging other things are. I agree that reinventing the ion battery and the manufacturing process of the ion battery is a valuable contribution to society that's extremely challenging. I'm not going to say I'm not necessarily a believer in geniusness. Like, and if anyone but there's no way that buying PayPal,
you're right.
Like, I'm not going to say that buying PayPal puts you on the same level as Mozart. Like,
you're correct, because it's not just the buying of it; it's the buying of it and the nourishing of it.
It was it was already everything it needed to be when it was bought. Like,
you know,
he wouldn't have bought it otherwise.
I'm not going to agree with that.
And to the degree that he nourished it, he told people, make it better, make it more expensive, make it this, make it that. He is not someone who understands engineering on the same level as, or computer programming, or banking, or any of the things that he invests in to the degree that the people under his employ do. And then his problem...
Well, yes, but that's why you employ them.
That is why you employ them.
Right.
But that is, at best, effective leadership, and there are plenty of insider stories suggesting that it.
Well, but hard. I mean, this is analogous to the presidency.
It
right?
is
the president of the United States is in no way, shape, or form the leading expert on the economy, the leading expert on defense, the leading expert on any of these things, civics, any of them. No, he has the cabinet and all of the advisors to advise him.
I agree, and I think that it's possible to be an effective leader. I would argue that Elon Musk hasn't always remotely succeeded at that, but what I will say is,
no, I'm not going to say that.
You can't put one president in front of me that I would call a genius. Not one. Like, and that is
Lincoln.
Nope. Lincoln. Watch Lincoln. Watch the movie. Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation not because he was struck by the divine arrow of God to lead people, but because he saw progressiveness as the only political move he had to make at that moment in time.
But you got to understand, though, that like there's value in courage.
Yes.
There's value in willing to put your money where your mouth is.
That is true, and I credit him with that.
Yeah.
I am not saying that it didn't take courage to be progressive at a time when it was going to hurt a lot of
I think at the end of the day, you're correct about the word genius kind of being a misnomer.
And I think that systems of power in particular are very effective at saying this was genius and here's who did it. And it's like, no,
you're correct, because
no.
this is
It's
the same thing as the talent phenomenon.
Fucking Frederick Douglass was a genius.
Yeah, Frederick Douglass was a genius, without a doubt. Yeah.
Lincoln was not a genius. Lincoln did read some things that Frederick Douglass wrote, and that is like the value. And Lincoln listened, and that's
you have to be a student. You have to be astute enough to know to pay attention.
I think that is absolutely a credit that we can give President Lincoln unequivocally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to call him a genius for that. I'm not going to call him freaking Mozart for that.
All right.
Like that's good leadership. He exercised.
See, I was thinking about this really like a lot for the last 2 weeks, like this concept of talent and genius and stuff like that, which is, one of the things I've been wrestling with on a personal level for a couple weeks is that, like, I actually am starting to become of the opinion that I am not special in any way, shape, or form, kind of thing. But what I mean when I say that is that I wasn't born with any, call them like genetic advantages, right? Kind of thing. All of the things that I have going for me, the skills I've cultivated, the perspectives that I have, reasoned out over decades of work, stuff like that. That's what it is, right? It's all been decades of work, right? That I have willfully undertaken in order to improve myself. I am not you and I actually had this decision. Like my IQ based on an actual IQ test does like categorically define me as a genius, but like it's never helped me, right? Like it's one of these things where it's like I have always been the person who has had to help myself. I have not been given anything because I scored 176 on an IQ test, right? Like
So let's talk about the other side of that spectrum for a second.
Let me just finish the thought real quick. And so this goes back to the thing, which is like, if you look at like LeBron James, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, it's either him or Michael Jordan. You look at Tom Brady, who's inarguably the best football player of all time. And it's like, why were they able to get to those heights? Mm-hmm. Now, without a doubt, that is going to be 99 and probably some tenths % hard work, right? Like it's absolutely almost exclusively going to be grounded in the.
Mike Tyson has been punching since he was 5. Like there's no other answer to that. Like,
however, when we're talking about going from, let's call it like professionally, sustainably successful, right? And that's a very high bar for anything, really, to when you're going from that to the greatest of all time. Yes, I do think genetics come into play, right? And when we're talking about individual people, rather than just the highest tier of a category kind of thing. And so like I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, like, all right, well, like, so let's assume that you did have world-class genetic gift at something.
Okay.
Right? Let's assume you also didn't know what it was. And then let us assume that whatever you end up doing in life is not that thing. Right? Does it actually offer any other benefit? Or do you have to get lucky in discovering that thing that you're just better at?
No, I think those kinds of advantages I think that they have massive crossover. I think
that there's some crossover, right? So I was like starting to think about it. It's like I'm very much jack of all trades. I won't say I'm master of none. I do feel like I am borderline there on my writing, although you're clearly better than I am, but you're also like clearly masterful.
That's the kind thing to say. I hit a wall the other day where I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I've written more than 70 screenplays today. Like, I was like, oh, damn. Like, so
Yeah. So for me, it's like if I'm not a master, I still very much consider myself an expert. And but my thought is like that wasn't something that just happened, right? Like I've
yes,
been writing for
yes.
21 years.
So let's turn it around and let's look at these
Yeah,
billionaires. Let's look at in
sure.
particular people who come into the billionaire class through inheriting money. People like Elon Musk.
Oh, see that's the class I would rather not look at because it's there. I don't think what I'm
Well,
trying to talk about
no,
really
no. But
applies.
let's talk about Aperture. Is my point. I think
Okay,
I think Aperture was built by a Howard Hughes type.
Paris Hilton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody who's like who bought all these spaces and hired all these amazing people and said, "Make me a visionary. Like, do the things. Like, toilet paper that wipes your ass for you. Make it happen." Like
Yeah, actually, and this is I'm really glad you said that actually, right? Because at the end of the day, and I was thinking about this, is that is it actually like theft of innovation? Because here's what it is, right? I think it's very easy for us to be like, oh, Elon Musk stole the credit of PayPal and Tesla and stuff like that. And perhaps that's correct. Perhaps it is correct to say that. I'm not sure. But is it I think you can also make an argument, right? That the people who genuinely did innovate these things, these two, electrical car engineers who founded Tesla, for example, right? And who have gotten none of the glory kind of thing. They made a choice
yes, they did.
to let Elon come in and pay them
Yes, they
kind
did.
of thing.
Yes, they did.
So
And
they placed a monetary value on something, and then so it's like it's hard for me to give
I'm not.
Elon no credit.
I don't look. Here's my thing.
Right.
I'm not necessarily saying it's morally wrong,
Okay.
but it is garbage leadership to take that credit and not do something effective with it. To take that credit just for the credit's sake. It's one thing if you buy that company and you use the social cachet that
Well,
like it's a
I mean,
waste. It's an utter
if,
waste.
if we're specifically talking about Elon, you and I have had the conversation about how there's a lot more gray there than just black and white. And it's like I will just go back. I'll go back to the easiest example, which was the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine. Elon Musk turned on all of the Starlink prototypes so that Ukraine could continue
Yes,
to
yes.
have
Well, there's a
communications.
utilitarian
Like,
there's a utilitarian conversation here. Like the reason
sure,
Elon Musk did that, in hindsight, based on his other behavior, I am convinced it's because he wanted to be known as the person who saved Ukraine, and he lost interest in Ukraine when that simple act, when his contribution was not the defining contribution. At that point, he started supporting Trump, and Trump supported Russia because he was like, you know what, this was for me, and you guys didn't pay me out, so like, peace out. Like, I think there's but putting that aside, putting all
you
of
could
this
be right.
aside, putting
Yeah, yeah.
all
Aperture.
Aperture, like,
Yeah.
I think you've got somebody who walks into the room, hires all these people. So like I'm not saying it's ethically right or wrong. I don't really give a shit. At the end of the day, what you do with it is what counts to me. And if you did it, like if these people paid you out and you built this legacy and you won World War II with it, I'd be like, well,
Right.
like,
Well, so like that, and that's kind of like the leader I want to be,
yeah.
right? Which is like, look, I understand,
And
and there is a fundamental truth here that's like, if you really want to make like singularly, and visibly a difference in the world as an individual, right?
mhm.
Like you do have to adopt a certain degree of divide and conquer, a little bit.
I also think though that you can't
Yeah,
empower people without empowering people. Like I think
correct.
if you want your products to make a difference in people's lives, start by showcasing the people who do the real work. One of the things that I adore about Star Citizen is
Yeah,
that like Chris Roberts has built an entire division of his company to turn to the public and say, "Look who this person is. Look what they did. Look what they did." Like sometimes not even
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
like not even stuff that like
So
not
can
even
I?
yeah.
This is very much self gratifying, but like with the movie that I'm in development on right now, it's called The Glass Bridge, right? So with The Glass Bridge, Yeah, I mean, obviously, like as a filmmaker, I fantasize about winning Oscars, right?
Yeah.
But that said, what comes in like really like on the same level as that for me? Like, so let's say that Pipe Dream Fantasy, Glassbridge gets nominated for like best original screenplay, best director, best picture, and also say for example, best supporting actress,
Yep.
right? And let's say come Oscar night, the only thing it wins is best supporting actress, nothing
Yep.
else.
I've told
Do
you.
you think that I am not like
Oh no, I know you are.
losing my shit out
I've
of my like
I've
so
told you
excited,
that the
so
most
positive, like
genuine.
yeah,
I've already
yeah.
told you that because screenwriters are not meant to be read. Like the best award a screenwriter can ever win is Best Actor and Best Actress. That's the best award you can win. That's the best one you can win. Like
Best original screenplay.
Like
Best original
well,
screenplay.
I'm not. You know me. I'm just getting into my writerness as a writer. I
Yeah,
really am. Like
I know.
the joy of being read
The,
is not.
the,
It's
the
not
thing,
something I
the
can
thing about it
express.
too is that like when and I do believe this as a filmmaker or director, also as someone who has taken acting classes now for years, which is like if someone wins an acting Oscar, it's a credit to the entire production. It's
Yes.
yes the writer, but like I mean, my acting teacher loves to say that if you ever win an Oscar for acting, the first person you need to thank is the editor.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that,
Yep.
to be honest.
So
The editor is the person who actually makes you look good.
so the
So
point about Aperture is that we have in our founder a person who lacks this wisdom to like the most hilarious degree. And what they're
okay,
like, do they want to be a visionary to make the world a better place? Presumably yes. But like they're also making flubber. Like
let's be fair though. Like if flubber was a real invention, yeah, that
yes,
would have been incredible for
yes, for
society.
sure.
Kind of.
He's working on physics defying like
God, I love Robin
he's making
Williams.
flubber. That's what he's doing. So I did figure out what was wrong with my cable, obviously.
Would that we could still have Robin Williams?
So yeah, I know people in the comedy community who worked with him like regularly, and
My acting teacher loves occasionally to tell us about doing like coke with him in the bathroom of the Improv, like back in the 80s, kind of thing.
I knew. Well, then I know people who know your acting teacher.
Probably, actually, yeah.
Damn it, I forgot her name. I'll ask you. I'll ask you.
Yeah.
After we get up, I'll look up her name. Jen is her name, but she was a comic in the 80s.
My acting teacher worked at a newsstand on one of the lots, and like every morning, like all of these A-listers would just come up and buy stuff directly from him, kind of thing. Unless he's making it up and he's acting. I don't think he is, but I suppose it's possible. But those are the stories he tells us. His stories are always consistent, so I have no reason to think he's not telling the truth.
So
Aperture.
you've got all the yes. So you've got all these people being asked to do all these incredible things and
Right.
make these things happen and create the technologies that will define this person's legacy. That's what's happening here. So so the problem that this guy has was that he gave one of those jobs either in the creation of GLaDOS or after the creation of GLaDOS. I tend to think in the creation because GLaDOS has such a problem getting around it. But he gave one of these jobs to GLaDOS. Make me a genius. And GLaDOS was like, here's your thing. Like,
but again, we still need to we can't just forget about the time period, right? Of like from GLaDOS's activation to the genocide.
Right, but
right? It's the same event.
Yeah, but GLaDOS is an artificial intelligence. That problem could have been solved in milliseconds.
Right. So, yes. I just we need to just maintain that.
There was no extended relationship from the human side of things. There was no extended relationship.
Right. All I'm saying is that if you're going to communicate anything to GLaDOS, there's no before GLaDOS. There's no communicating something to GLaDOS before it's turned on. You can program GLaDOS before GLaDOS is turned on.
Yes,
but you can't communicate to GLaDOS before GLaDOS is turned on.
GLaDOS got switched on and just did the thing that they were supposed to do. But the problem is that you see what I'm saying? Like it was a thing that got finished, and there was no afterwards. There was no afterwards for GLaDOS. There was
like I'm very much like a writer who's like the devil is in the details
Yeah.
kind of thing. Because I do believe this, right? For everything that you have taught me, and that is quite a bit, and I am extremely grateful for it, and I agree with nearly all of it. I do still think that there has to be a cohesion to reality in order to give the narrative room to actually be magnificent in whatever lane it chooses to be in.
I agree. Yeah,
Kind of
but as
thing.
long as we acknowledge that reality is subjective to the story, then I 100% agree. I think there's different realities to tell a story in.
I mean, oh well, yeah, absolutely. There are a million different ways to or filters, I guess, prisms through which you can tell a story, and we need to be consistent within that. But so, like, again, I'm still thinking like, if this is a multinational conglomerate of a company, right? Like, and it's big time. And okay, so
based on the production design, there's two things that. So on the one hand, we have a lot of 1950s imagery going on in Portal. On the other hand, there's a lot
the
of
technology is not 1950s.
So I think that there's a little bit of alternative history going on here, and I think that
Wait a second. Like,
this
is an interesting idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was a period piece? What if this is like, I don't remember if I've told you that
1968, but like
Right. But so, like, I'm friends with a guy who was formerly one of the best online poker players in the world, and his father is like, a doctoral biogeneticist, or at least was before he retired. Like really, really high end science stuff. And his father, I'd never told me this directly, but his father has been known has been quoted as saying this multiple times to like mutual friends and stuff like this, that the cure for cancer, for AIDS, for all of these horrible diseases already exists. But it's being kept under lock and key because it would just totally destabilize like the entire pharmaceutical industry kind of thing. Like all of these companies that are like, I'm invested in a company that's doing very much like frontier line work on blood cancer treatments, myeloma. That's what it is, myeloma. And that company would not exist if there was a just unilateral cure for cancer kind of thing. There are a lot of companies that wouldn't exist, and this is the whole thing. The money is not in the cure; the money is in the treatment.
Yeah.
And so, with all this being said, the idea of Portal, like maybe even like taking place in like Manhattan Project kind of era, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Back when the crazy technologies were kind of being like pursued a little bit because we weren't sure whether or not they were possible.
Yeah.
I feel reasonably confident that I remember reading about like, the US government actually like trying to make headway in like teleportation during like the Cold War.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
I did a web series. I don't know if I told you about this. I'm going to tell you about this in a sec.
Project Icarus?
Yeah, I did tell you. Okay.
Yeah, you told me about Project Icarus.
I'm going to use the bathroom and feed the dogs real quick. Would you mind continuing this train of thought? We have a couple of viewers, as it turns out.
Yeah.
So I'll be right back, gang, and I will leave you in Greg's capable hands for one quick sec.
Yeah, I'll sermonize here for a moment, I guess. This idea of it being like more period and having it exist in a space that's like kind of not contradictory, but like has like an aesthetic that conflicts with like the concept, right? Because we think Portal. And we think, futuristic technology, like, it's like jetpacks to, people back in the 50s and the 60s kind of thing. We're like, by this time, I think all of our grandparents would probably led to believe that we would all have like, portable aerial vehicles at this point. I think that if you think about it in terms of like the way the world is now, it makes sense that we don't have, personal aerial vehicles because look at, how many car accidents we have just on pavement. that, you couldn't trust the general public to just fly, kind of thing. That's a technology that can't exist until like there's autopilot on everything. It's like, and we're trending in that direction with self-driving cars. But so like this idea of portals actually taking place in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, that's a really interesting idea. And I think like perhaps it could work, right? Especially because the idealism of just especially American culture back then was so fantastic, right? The 50s and the 60s, the post-war era was like those were the decades of plentifulness and bountifulness for our culture, for our society, where we really did everything. We had so much. I don't really want to say excess, but it was kind of like excess. Everything, like there was so much new being built, so much infrastructure that was brand new, and like that was shiny, and the country was beautiful. Like even places that we wouldn't even consider going today. Because they've kind of either become derelict or abandoned or both or whatever. They were brand new and shiny back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. I recently saw this. It was a meme, but it was about this. It was like the biggest swimming pool in the world, I want to say, which I think was in San Francisco, and I want to say it was built in like the 50s. It was like 1,000 feet by 1,500 feet. Or something like that, and it's been it's converted into a parking lot now. I want to say, and I want to say it was like built in '58, and I'm talking about how basically like 40, not so much the 40s, but the 50s and the 60s were the decades of plentifulness and like bountifulness, and where we had so much and everything was new and shiny, especially like the infrastructure. Right? Like, why do we have infrastructure problems now? It's because we're still using infrastructure from the 50s and the 60s because we built all of it and then we didn't have the resources to maintain all of it, kind of. And so this idea of making it a period piece really appeals to me because I think it solves perhaps some of kind of the modern quote unquote late stage capitalist problems that I'm running into trying to think about this, where it's like, dude, the CEO of a multinational company today is not going to have some ridiculous whimsical goal after R&Ding a project that's probably, let's be fair, developing something like GLaDOS is probably billions of dollars in expenditure, kind of thing. They're not going to have some whimsical goal for it. The attitude is all about bottom line. How can we risk mitigate? How can we reduce possible losses? Like no. But if this takes place in the 50s or the 60s, when jetpack, and I was talking about jetpacks while you were gone, when jetpacks are like the idea of the future,
and stuff like that. There's almost something very Dharma Institute about about
Aperture.
Yeah.
Dharma Institute. What a great callback for this. Yes. And for anyone listening or watching who doesn't know what the Dharma Institute is, Dharma Institute was the company responsible for all of the exploration, investigation, and research that pertained to the island in the television show Lost. Yeah. And so they were obsessed with the island on figuring out what it is, how they could monetize it, all this stuff. But yes, it's very Dharma Institute. You're right. Absolutely.
So let's talk about Shell and the Ark here, because first of all, I mean, the cake issue is fine to me as long as when GLaDOS reveals that this whole thing has been Shell's whole life has been engineered to make her want this, and it's never going to happen. Here's
an interesting like little Easter egg to this thing. If you make it a period piece, the cake now has a different connotation, which I find really interesting, right?
Explain.
Because the further back, we're not going all the way back to like French Revolution, let them eat cake, right? But even still, refrigeration.
It's more refined. I see what you're saying.
Well, it's more of a luxury item. Yeah. Because again, refrigeration wasn't like, when did refrigeration become like really just like household common.
The other thing, by the
Um,
way, the other thing about Portal to keep in mind, supporting your concept of the period piece, is that moon science is such a hot ticket in this,
yeah.
like like it's all about moon dust and moon rocks and this and that, like
Yeah.
so yeah, like
Well, also let if we make it period, there is also I just looked up. Refrigeration became common in the late 20s and the early 30s as post. It was a depression era thing, and that makes sense because you needed to be able to preserve food. So like
yeah.
necessity is the mother of invention and all that. But the moon thing though, the moon,
So it has to be the early
it's great.
70s. It has to be the early
That's the thing,
70s.
right? Cold War, the space race. Now, all of a sudden, if we start thinking about portal science as a way to win the space race, now we're getting into something really interesting. And with GLaDOS, and I'm not saying that this is proper or even the way it should go, but if you think of GLaDOS almost as like, perhaps was designed as a way to win the Cold War kind of thing. That's an interesting idea too. I'm not necessarily saying that that's right, and it might not be a good idea, but
I think it
I
should
think
be something.
at least
I
worth
think it needs to be
exploring.
something absurd. I think there needs to be a level of absurdism to GLaDOS's goal, because he was like, "Let's build a robot to do this," and then the robot is like, "I'll do this."
What if the robot was built to just like kill all Russians or something like that, right? You know.
because there's a political, because that takes the story outside of the testing chamber.
You're okay, so you're attempting to avoid that.
Yeah, I don't want. I think one of the things that you're worried about, one of the things rightfully so worried about in adapting Portal, is trying to put something on the story to make it more than what it is. And I think you need something, you
Hmm.
need something simple and intimate, and it should be something. Wait, you killed all these people to accomplish what?
We
It
we
needs to
we
be that.
we talked about this the last time we were on, but I need you to refresh my memory because I'm blanking on it now. What was the big realization I had about writing narratives that don't take themselves seriously? What was the trick again? Help. Remember that I had this
We
big
talked.
realization
Yeah,
about
you
it?
did. You did. You were so excited about it. I think it was just that the character takes it seriously. It's not. It's not about. It's just. It's about pursuing an absurd action. Is
I
how
was,
you
I was
do it.
really thinking because I remember when we were talking about this 2 weeks ago, I brought up Redline as the example because like I adore
Yeah.
Redline as a movie,
Yeah.
as a movie where all of the characters have, for the most part, all of the characters have extremely strong lines of action, and it just that movie could not take
And
itself
we
less
talked. And
seriously.
we talked about Hail Caesar again. We've talked about
Right.
like at the trick. It's about. I mean, I don't remember the point that was made, but I can tell you that it's about letting the character pursue an absurd action with total conviction, and just finding a truth within the character that makes that action necessary. So and
Yeah,
it's the
that's right. It crosses the line. All it is you just have to let the character pursue their goal beyond a pragmatic uh, methodology and let them take it to the realm of like just absurdism kind of
which
thing.
by the way, again, comedy and drama are the same. That is true for
Yeah, they're the
drama
same.
too.
Absolutely the same. Yep.
World Trade Center doesn't work if he sees the World Trade Center falling and goes, mm-mm. like
Right, well, and this is
like
the whole thing. It's like this is the same thing as like how music like comes into play as underscore in a movie, right? Like you can take like this horrific like traumatic, psychologically traumatic moment in a movie and put like, the Sesame Street intro to it. And you get this just just extremely odd cognitive dissonance that like just totally changes everything about the
well,
moment.
good scoring. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but good scoring is and music is such an important
Yeah.
part of Portal, obviously. Like good
Well,
scoring
my
is.
my opinion on good scoring is invisible.
Oh, I disagree. I well, in good scoring. Well, so we've talked a
Yeah.
lot about not saying theme. Our
Right.
composer is the one person who does get to speak in theme,
Yes,
and and
yes, yeah,
and so
absolutely.
and the theme that you're speaking in should be a theme that is not explicitly like don't if you're using score to amp up an action sequence, for example, if that's what you're doing, the truth
Right.
is you haven't done your job in the editing room, and you haven't done your job with your actors, and you haven't done your job with your stunt coordinator, and you haven't
Well,
done
what I would
like
say is you haven't done your job in the choreography.
like
Really.
what you want is a theme that juxtaposes in some way and deepens and heightens. Say the
Yeah.
thing that's not on the screen because you already said what's on the screen. Say the
I would be. I'm sure you haven't. I would love at some point though, when you do get the chance to watch it, I would love to get your opinions on the primary action sequence in Red Valley.
I did watch it actually,
Oh, you did watch it.
but we'll
Okay.
discuss it. I'm not gonna. I'm not.
All
You
right.
know.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't need. Yeah, not on podcast time. Yeah, no. So the music is critical, clearly. But
George
yeah,
Lucas, George Lucas, and you can use that as a director to your advantage. George Lucas in the original
yeah,
Star Wars, John
yeah.
Williams is the one who creates the scope of the Star Wars.
It's not an opera without John Williams kind
No,
of thing.
there's
Yeah,
no because the camera. George Lucas did not have the money to build a whole cantina. If when Han shoots Greedo, if George Lucas takes one step back, you see the edge of the set. He's
yeah,
cornered. He can't get anywhere with that camera,
yeah.
and so there's nothing
And
else. And yet you feel this huge scope to everything that's on the screen because John Williams is the one saying,
dun 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 dun
yeah,
dun 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 dun
yeah,
dun.
exactly.
Yeah. That might actually, other than the title scroll music, the original theme, which it's probably the most iconic thing John Williams has ever written.
Yep.
The
Which again, it's about
Cantina
scope.
track.
Here's some stars.
Right.
But
It's
guess
about
what's
scope.
happening inside the stars? Guess what's out there?
Right.
All this adventure is out there.
In a galaxy, right? In a galaxy long ago, in a galaxy far away, right? And I mean, that's just brilliant storytelling and filmmaking. Is like you have this just title, right? A long time ago in a galaxy far away, trumpets.
Yep.
And it's just and it comes through the front of the frame, right?
Yeah.
It's so big.
Yeah.
And the trumpets are so big, and the scale of the narrative is so big. It's all big, and it's all so synergistic and wonderful. But the Cantina track is like clearly the most like iconic track, other than that one.
Watch Richard Donner's Superman with the sound off. Do you know
Spielberg?
Why?
Spielberg recommends all filmmakers should watch movies with the sound off.
Yep.
Because that's where you actually see the secrets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I agree with that. And this is also
John Williams is the one who makes you believe a man can fly.
Right. Well, so this is also, I tell this to people like who are interested in stunts because I came up as a stunt performer. I am a stunt performer. If you watch that great sequence in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indy is chasing the Nazis who have the Ark in the back of the military cargo truck and he's on the horse, right?
Yes. Yep.
Turn the sound off and watch
miles an hour.
Watch the wheels of the vehicles.
Yep.
Right? You can see the actual rotation and it because like when you don't have the music and the sound effects and the omnis of dialogue of the German soldiers all shouting in German kind of thing, the brain can actually see and process that the wheels are turning at a rate that's like clearly that's like 10 to 15 miles an hour tops. Kind of thing. And this is the thing. So Spielberg very much, I'm sorry. That's not Spielberg. Oh my God. I'm sorry. That's a miscredit. It's not Spielberg. It's Ron Howard. Ron Howard says to do that. And he's absolutely correct. And this is the point because you turn the sound off and the filmmaking process starts to reveal itself. This shows you how integral the sound is.
So here's the real question about Portal. You've got, so Shell, just to touch on it, Shell finds out the cake is a lie and everything's a lie and Shell's completely screwed and condemned.
Is the cake a lie?
Well, that's the moment when Shell needs to say, well, there's got to be, that's when Shell starts trying to get out of the building instead of just trying to get the reward. You see what I'm saying? That's the third act, is escape. So it's got to still be about getting the cake and getting whatever the cake represents. And that is the thing, that is the hill I will die on because otherwise it's just a revenge story. I don't buy it. But
right, yeah, no, I think it should. So I also love the outrageous absurdity and having the cake is a lie itself be a lie.
Yeah.
Because then I think there's like a really nice cycle. One, have always been and always will be a fan of the unreliable narrator. kind
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves an unreliable narrator. Let's be fair, because a reliable narrator is kind of boring. It's like it's predictable. You know what's coming because you can just take them at their word.
Yeah.
The unreliable, maybe that's why I can't get a girlfriend. The unreliable narrator is a lot more interesting, and the idea of all of the like is GLaDOS the one lying? Does GLaDOS think she's telling the truth with the cake, but GLaDOS has been lied to? Like, I don't know. There's just like I think there's so many fun opportunities there that don't violate any of the good principles of
Oh yeah, yeah.
writing.
And how
Um,
GLaDOS tries to achieve, and the truth is, like, there is an element of Joker to GLaDOS. Like GLaDOS is
oh
like,
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
but it's
Was
all
it
driven by
Joker
the.
or Harley Quinn? Commercialized Harley Quinn, I should say.
No, it's Joker. Like she is pursuing this goal, whatever we decide the experiment is, and that becomes a conversation, like you said, with the narrative team
Their
of
narrative
Valve.
team of Valve. Yeah.
But 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 she's pursuing it with the best to the best of her ability, using her understanding of how things work. And there is an ingrained like the conversations with Shell are part of the experiment. The head games are part of the experiment. It's
Oh yeah,
all
absolutely.
like it's all part of the
It's
experiment.
all in it's all in pursuit of data.
So 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 that's all stuff that she's doing deliberately, whether or not she's telling the truth. So the truth is irrelevant to GLaDOS. Like it,
Yes, to GLaDOS, the truth is irrelevant, but I still think because we are Shell is still our protagonist.
yep.
So
So
Shell's perspective.
the cake is real. Let's get it. And then GLaDOS pulls back the because at the beginning, like the first act is Shell participating in these experiments and pushing the boundaries of the experiments and showing everything that she's
Would
capable of.
you have the first act end with Shell discovering a room with the graffiti on it that says the cake is a lie? Like maybe written in, I don't know, blood or not blood, but kind of the horrific discovery.
No, I would have I would have the first act end with the moment when Shell discovers that the experiments are designed to kill her.
Oh. So actually, you know what? Let me ask a question about that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna question that the experiments are designed to kill her, because I think that is a satisfactory endpoint to the experiments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, however, think it is the only endpoint to the experiments, because again, I don't think the goal is to kill Shell. I think the goal
No,
is to get data, and if Shell happens to die, well, too bad for Shell.
no, but
But
what I'm saying is
you know,
Shell is not a partner in this process.
correct. Yes,
Like,
I agree with that
like,
100%.
but in the beginning, she thinks she is.
Really?
Yep.
Even like waking up with no memory of like how where you are, how you got there, and you're just you're
Well,
handed the
because in the
portal
beginning,
gun, and
GLaDOS is like, or I forget if it's GLaDOS or Wheatley or whoever, but somebody's like, "Hey, get in the thing. Let's do some science."
I think it's glad. Yeah, I think you said Wheatley doesn't come around until the second one, right?
So it's
So yeah,
yeah. So she's like, "Yes, let's do some
yeah.
science. Like, let's do this. Let's do that. Here, see if you can do this."
Shell is a human though. Would a human not question everything immediately?
I think Shell is allowed to question, but I think at the end of the day, Shell has just woken up from a long nap and would like a snack, would like some cake. I think it's that simple. Let's do some science. I'll give you a piece of cake.
Am I just stuck in the pragmatism again, and I just need to
Yeah,
allow this to be
yeah,
absurd?
yes, because it is absurd. Like, and because it's a whimsy factory made by a mad scientist, appropriated by a robot. Like, it's fine. So like, hey, let's do some science. You can have some cake, and Shell's like, yeah, yeah,
Do we as the writers need to know who Shell is?
nope. I mean, we need to know exactly who Shell is up
Like,
until
do we need to know how she got there?
she was cloned. There's other Shells. We know that.
Oh, we do know that, don't we? I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, okay. Oh. I had totally forgotten that. Right. So the whole thing is just like it's like the Citadel in Rick and Morty where they're just cloning Mortys to make
It's
Mortys kind
Moon
of thing.
with Sam Rockwell.
I didn't see that. But okay.
Okay,
And
and
so
so
every time a shell dies, we just get another clone.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that detail. But yes, now I do remember that. Okay, that changes everything, yeah. So yeah. So it makes sense. Okay. So humor me here because I do love my poetic synergy
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Do we find any kind of poetic irony in GLaDOS creating shells to achieve her ends, where GLaDOS herself was a creation to achieve someone else's end, kind of thing?
I think that it's okay for GLaDOS to enjoy that. I think that I think that
I mean,
that
if ever
yeah,
there was a place
yeah.
to illuminate GLaDOS's spite, I feel like that's it right
But
there.
I don't think you necessarily need to like have dialogue about it. Like I'll put it to you this way. I think that that's
We need to have dialogue about it.
I think
I think that
I think
understanding the characters is integral to writing them authentically.
I
That's
yeah,
all
I
I'm
think
saying.
I think there's a degree. I think that's part of the joke for GLaDOS for sure. I think that's part of the joke. And I
Can
will
I can I just ask, because I have like this little kid, like, oh my god, that's so cool,
yep.
like part of me
Hmm.
that I have to ask this question,
Ask it.
right?
Ask it.
Could we have it be that Shell Prime, okay, was actually like the principal progenitor of GLaDOS, kind of thing? Whether we don't have to. She doesn't have to be CEO of Aperture, but could be like lead engineer or lead programmer or something, like very much responsible for the
Oh.
creation of GLaDOS. So GLaDOS picking Shell as the person to quote unquote eternally torment has an added layer to it. Can we do that, or is
Yeah,
that too
I think that's
contrite?
no, I think that's fair. I don't think we should ever I don't think it should necessarily be revealed that
Be
that's it.
mentioned, right?
Because
Yeah,
that's
but
but I think in terms of character motivation and understanding that for the actors and the
yeah,
puppeteers, I think that makes a lot of sense. The thing
okay,
that I want to talk to you about, because for me this is the real, like we've talked through most of the challenges. We understand how this could be a good movie except for one huge problem,
okay,
which is both necessary to work through and and so it's a conceit of the story, and at the same time we got to figure it out because, and they deal with this in the game to some degree by having Shell break out of the tests, but
right.
we have an incredibly episodic story here. Now, one thing that the way I got Greg hooked on this story, just to recap the conversation at the end of our last session, was by reminding Greg that Shell doesn't have any dialogue and that this is a story told almost exclusively and entirely through stunt work. Like that, and that's
It
when.
is. There are no conversations in this entire thing.
Yep.
It's all just GLaDOS monologuing.
And while Shell tries to solve puzzles physically using
Right.
physical, and some of these puzzles are death defying. Some of these puzzles involve leaping over vast distances, and you've got the springies that she puts on that let her jump.
Oh,
Uh,
it's the stuff that lets her land from any
right.
height,
Yep.
kind of thing. I
But
mean,
even
yes, she does have the ability, like it does allow her to jump higher, kind of thing. But the integral thing is that you can fall from literally infinite height and be okay, kind of thing.
so you've got these springies on her feet, and she's just
Right.
bouncing around the inside, which is going to be amazing and so challenging. But we're turning.
Not actually as challenging as you think, because that's all just simple wire work, to be honest.
Okay, but even
I mean,
so,
yeah,
it's
I mean, expensive to paint out the wires in post, yes, but
and you say simple, but we're
yeah.
dealing, like, so much of the springing involves, like, you're dealing with more than one dimension. You're dealing with springing off of different surfaces. You're dealing with portals shooting you from different directions. Like,
Believe it or not, that kind of wire work is actually not extremely complicated. It's actually
okay,
fairly simple. It requires some specialized equipment. If we're talking about like horizontal launching, like you'd need what's called an air, sorry, not an air ram, a ratchet for that, which is like these days what they are. In the old days, it used to be like a catapult, where you wind it up as a ratchet, and then you pull the lever, and the whole thing unspools. And as it unspools, it's like a winch and just yank kind of thing.
mm,
Or a winch is like also another thing to do. But now what they have is they have these pneumatically pressurized air cannons, essentially. And so there's this great footage of me getting ratcheted at 115 psi, which is like for most people that's quite a bit kind of thing. And it's more than typically I think you ever really need to use on a set. That's a really violent flyback, and I like after that one, I was like, oh god, I hope I didn't break a rib. Just from my vest, like just crushing my ribs on that initial pull kind of thing. Um, and that's with no slack in the line. But it's really like not that it's honestly the more pain in the ass thing is in post. You just have to paint out all the wires like frame by frame, hand on, by hand, kind of thing. Having multiple points of impetus on a wire. All the great riggers are really good at that. Like there's good equipment for it. It's not actually like a crazy production like hurdle.
So here's the thing that I'm saying is that we've got these puzzles to solve, and those puzzles do take investigation, and they also take athleticism. But
Right.
it's not about solving the puzzles; it's about getting the cake.
Right.
So to some extent, I see solutions there where Shell can be using, like, there's computer terminals and information between the puzzles. Shell can be looking cake up and deciding what kind of cake she wants. Shell can be like, and GLaDOS is like,
Sure.
come on, let's just use just time for this later. Like you see what I'm saying? Like let's get you, but there has to come a point at the end of the first act where Shell realizes she's not just going to get the cake; she has to go get the cake, and that's when Shell starts to break the puzzles apart. You see what I'm saying? And try to get outside the puzzles and try to get behind the walls and do all the
And
things.
this is when we get the companion cube.
This is when we get companion cubes and also Wheatley and things like that. Like
So can I make an ask on the companion cubes here? Because I think this is like when I don't think you can do a portal anything and exclude the companion cube. I mean, the companion cube is very much like integral to the lore of Portal kind of thing. But in practice, right? Like, why would we be super invested in the companion cube kind of thing? And it's like, what about the companion cube really makes it so? Could we have the companion cube be like this box that emits just frequencies that trigger oxytocin release in the brain? So Shell actually falls in love with the companion cube kind of thing. Is that too much?
Yeah,
Or is that like
no. I think the companion cube is like just the only, like, the reason why there's a companion cube is because GLaDOS has given Shell something to be nice to Shell. So I think
But
that, like,
how do we humanize the companion cube though?
you
Because if
don't.
we don't humanize it,
No, you don't. You don't.
oh,
Shell
is the point is that Shell is not supposed to actually care about it?
um I think the point is that GLaDOS, the companion cube is a gaslighting tool for GLaDOS.
Okay. Oh yes, I agree with that.
Like,
Yeah.
so GLaDOS is saying, here's something, care about it.
Okay.
Like, that's the companion cube. So I think that Shell can or cannot decide to care about the companion cube, and it might.
Oh, is it like one of those, like, you remember that did you ever get the assignment when you were in school, like in elementary school or middle school, where you had to take care of the egg for a
Yes,
week?
yes. Like,
Yeah.
what's the name of
Teacher
the
would write their initials on the bottom of it.
Wilson is the Wilson? What's the name of the from Robinson Crusoe? The name of the coconut, right? That's like,
Oh, from
yeah,
from Castaway.
yeah. Like
Wilson's the volleyball.
Wilson. So
Yeah.
literally, GLaDOS is saying, here, have a Wilson. Treat it nice.
But so this is this. So I gotta ask, right? Because even in Castaway, right, Tom Hanks was talking to Wilson. That was part of it. It was like the fact that he started having conversations with the volleyball.
Yep.
Right. It was like that. That's how we saw he was going insane, kind of thing.
Well, I think
But
that
Shell having no dialogue. How does that?
Well,
how does that dynamic work?
I think that's a great opportunity with the actor. I think that
Okay.
like if this puzzle turns out to be really hard, I think the companion cube should be in the first act because this is when GLaDOS is in the most control over Shell. So it's like, here, have this thing, and then like GLaDOS is like, have this thing and solve this puzzle, and Shell's like, and so I think in the beginning, like, Shell's gonna sit and look at maybe she pats it or something, and then, like, she doesn't want to let it go, so maybe she straps it to her back and saves it from the test. Like, she carries it with her going forward, and then I think at the end of Act 2, when GLaDOS reveals that the whole thing is bullshit and none of this is ever going to go right, I think Shell should, like, throw the companion cube into an abyss. Like,
Well, in the actual game, you have to incinerate it.
oh, okay. Oh,
And there's an achievement. I remember I had never heard this word until I got the achievement for it, fratricide. The
yeah.
achievement that you get and it's like you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
You can't progress in the gameplay without incinerating the companion cube, but when you actually do it, you get achievement unlocked fratricide
See, I think
kind of
I
thing.
think that's a thing that works better in the game. I think that we don't want
Yeah.
GLaDOS to have control over it as much as possible. We want Shell to be driving her own narrative. So I think
You're-
when
and this is like my big question about the whole thing, which is like how do we actually have a narrative in
well,
this?
I think it's about Shell's efforts to get the cake. I think in the first act, Shell is forming a partnership with GLaDOS to try and get the cake, right?
Okay.
And then comes to a point where Shell realizes, no, I have to compete with GLaDOS to get the cake. You see what I'm saying? And I'm going to work with Whitley, and I'm going to work with
So
these other ideas. I'm going to find opportunities to subvert GLaDOS so I can have my cake. And so Shell starts looking for, and then Shell digs up the artificial intelligences, the spheres and everything, right? And then after that, Shell comes to a point where it's like nothing in this space is any good. I can't have cake here. I can't have cake here. I have to go have cake somewhere else.
can
So
I ask? It is a little bit of a tangential question, but
yeah,
it did occur to me, which is like the writer in me does want to know where Shell's innate lust for the cake comes from, kind of thing. And so my question is, if we consider that, Shell is a clone programmed by GLaDOS, and
yeah,
I kind of do like that. Part of me, and I think there's kind of an elegant solution here, which is like, let's assume then that GLaDOS actually has a lot of control as to how these clones are programmed, birthed, whatever,
and yeah,
and GLaDOS has programmed that into Shell's psyche, and simultaneously has also like I'm not gonna say programmed out the ability to talk, but I think that there's like an elegance into having like if well Shell being a clone, it's like a newborn, even though she's like an adult body and
yes,
adult motor function.
yes,
Newborns can't speak. They haven't learned how to use their voice. They don't know how to talk. They
but
know
they're
how to like
yeah,
scream and wail.
yeah,
But like,
yeah, absolutely. All of that is I agree, and I think at the same
does
time
that
there's
play?
yeah, but there are certain things that Shell does know how to do for like reasons of demolition man logic. Like it's been imprinted. Shell does have the athleticism. Shell does have like or yeah,
Right. It's like Neo in the Matrix. I know
yep.
kung fu kind of
So
thing.
so
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about how this all comes together because now that we've been talking about this, I actually do have a dream
Yeah. I
team.
don't know how it all comes together.
I have a dream team for this. I have a dream team for this.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and it involves going back in time to the year 2000 because I can't say some of these names um, without regretting recent events. But I wish that this had been the first movie of Gina Carano's career, and I wish that she had done this with Steven Soderbergh
As Shell.
as Shell. I think that first of all,
Yeah,
she would
that
have
would have that would be a good choice. I do like the exercise, but I do also want to
ultimately,
hear because we live in the present. I want to hear how it
yeah,
gets made today. But yes,
yeah.
by all means, give me your dream team.
Well, I think that for me is the thing, but
Yeah, but who's voicing GLaDOS though? Because to
well,
me that's more important than like actually the casting of Shell.
yeah.
I mean,
Um.
if I'm
Oh
being honest, right? Like I think that like voice of GLaDOS, my dream casting is probably something like I want to. It's probably like Bette Midler
no, no.
or
You're not.
Helen Mirren.
I hear you, but that's not the answer because you need
Not
someone.
the answer.
No, no. I know exactly who it is, and I'm just trying to look. Oh, you're gonna say yes as soon as I say it. It's obvious, and it's not an expensive choice. It's not an expensive choice, but it is like her moment. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? If we're pitching this right now, and we're pitching this with Valve, and we're pitching it with like Lionsgate, it's Catherine Hahn.
So I adore Catherine Hahn is always usually in my pitch decks as like an ideal casting choice for one thing or another. Because she's elegant, she's beautiful, she's brilliant, like she's all of those things. Um, Although I was just thinking, and I like what I'm getting at by saying that is that Catherine Hahn is never a bad choice. Like pretty much Catherine Hahn is just never a bad choice.
But this is exactly what she should be doing right now.
I won't disagree with that. I'm just like I'm trying to think of like potentially things that like people who might even be better kind of thing. I'm blanking on.
You need an element of vampiness for sure to GLaDOS. You need someone who's really going to like go for the gusto and like who has a really great, genuine, gleeful, joyful, evil laugh. But somebody also, because the other thing about GLaDOS is that GLaDOS isn't too deep. GLaDOS's jokes are flat. GLaDOS is funny because GLaDOS is trying to be funny and failing. Like GLaDOS genuinely doesn't have.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. So I was thinking of, and again, it's like I adore Catherine Hahn. You're never going to see me say no to Catherine Hahn, like especially for something like this. There were two people that popped into my head when you said that. The first was Greta Gerwig, who I actually think would be outstanding as GLaDOS. I've seen enough of her stuff. I know well, I mean, based on what she's done, I feel like I have an understanding of like her mentality and like her attitude towards comedy. And it's like really like she's like Greta Gerwig clearly.
Oh, I just had a shell idea, and I'm saying this today. I think she's the perfect choice today.
Okay, who is it?
Summer Glau.
What do I know her from? For Shell.
So good. That's it.
I know her from Firefly.
But you also know her from the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
I didn't
No!
Watch the No! I'm not a huge Terminator. I watched the first two Terminators because, like, you have to. If you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to watch the first two Terminators. But, like...
It is the best...
Terminator... Nothing against James Cameron. Rare for me. But, like, look, I have nothing but admiration for James Cameron and making that first Terminator movie. That is, like... The first Terminator should be like the filmmaking process of the first Terminator should be taught in every single film school, in my opinion, from here until the end of time. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't realize, like, you think about Terminator, everyone thinks about the second one with, the T-1000 and, hasta la vista, baby, and all of that. They fail to realize or remember or whatever. The first Terminator was made for $4 million below the line.
Yep.
Without it was
without a studio.
Without a studio. Now, yes, it was in the late 80s, and that's a lot more money in the late 80s than it is today.
Yeah.
But still, the first Terminator was made for $4 million below the line.
Yeah. That's
incredible. It was a low budget movie.
I was in film finance. I know. And people, by the way, what you don't even know is that the Terminator franchise was completely independent until Terminator 4. Until Terminator 4.
Even after Terminator 2, it was independent?
Yep.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Mario and Kassar did not own the rights, but they sold it to I think Arnold financed the third one.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, at a certain point, the superstars all start bankrolling the projects because they want the equity, because they know they're successful.
I think it was.
It's like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is how much money has Tom Cruise made off of when he just took charge of the Mission Impossible franchise kind of thing?
Yeah, I think
it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was Arnold.
So, but yeah, and
okay,
but Summer Glau started her career in ballet.
Okay, I could see that.
And that's how Joss Whedon met her, and she was originally, her first role in the Whedonverse was as a ballet dancing demon or a ballet dancing victim in Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode.
The other person who I would like, so for me, I would even put Catherine Hahn in like my top 3, right? So if I was doing a pitch deck for this, and I had to do my casting comps, right, for the character, I always for big roles I try to do 4, right? But three of them, without a doubt. Catherine Hahn for voice of GLaDOS. Catherine Hahn, Greta Gerwig, and then the other one I had to look up her name because I couldn't remember. But I think that like I would adore to have like Judy Greer in
You
that
know
role,
what? I just
kind of
had
thing.
I just had I just had
Yep.
a better than Catherine Hahn for the role, Impulse 2, but you might not agree with me.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say that like she's got stuff that people haven't seen.
Okay.
She's not just SNL.
Right.
Kate McKinnon.
Need to look her up. I can't attach the name to the face right now.
Did you see the Peter Feig
Oh
Ghostbusters?
no.
Do
But
you
I am familiar with who this is.
She's phenomenal. And she's
What did I see her in?
she's a lot like Keegan Michael Key. She's a Shakespearean trained actor who got into sketch comedy because nobody else was hiring her. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? She is somebody who's been doing theater.
Who did she voice in Finding Nemo? Or Finding Dory, I guess. She voiced someone in Finding Dory.
Kate McKinnon and Kate McKinnon hasn't had the arch evil character yet. Catherine Hahn has. You know what I mean? So she may have said her piece on it, whereas Kate McKinnon, like,
the funny thing about Catherine Hahn having the arch evil character is that she wasn't actually the arch evil character. She was only like the foil evil character.
yeah, true.
Scarlet Witch was actually the evil character herself, kind of thing.
I am excited. I haven't seen any episodes, but I am excited for Agatha all along. And by the way,
yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it for sure.
And I
loved WandaVision. I loved WandaVision.
It was fantastic television. And I will also say that the character of Agatha and the relationship between Agatha and Wanda is such a. If you've read the comics,
I haven't.
There's a in the like early 2000s, right about the same time they finished up with Secret Wars and kind of reinvented the Marvelverse and started introducing all these female characters
in the comics.
When they did the new Miss Marvel with you know what I'm saying, when they did all these things, when they Ironheart.
I did not. I have never read. I was never a comic book guy, so I've never read the comics.
But there was a period where they started introducing a lot of gay characters, a lot of female characters. Like,
yeah, I can believe it.
It was fantastic work, and there was some of the best writing in the history of. That's when they released the infamous Iron Man, which is my favorite Marvel comic to date.
Yes. As I have over the past few years been trying to fill out my entire run of the only comics that I own, which is Invincible, because I absolutely adore it.
Oh, sure. I've read those. Yep.
Every time I'm looking for Invincible comics, I run into Infamous Iron Man because it's you're going through the stuff, and it's like you find Infamous Iron Man comics.
That book.
Yeah.
I've never identified with a superhero as much as I identify with Victor Von Doom. I'm just going to take a brief aside to tell the story of that comic because I love it so much. So, and by the way, like
Robert Downey Jr.
No, it's not the same. So, not that I'm not poo-pooing it, but that's kind of the inverse of what actually happened. So,
understood. Yeah,
there was this big metaverse collapse, which is what they're building into now. Secret Wars is how they're going to end it, and basically there's
multiverse.
There's a big multiversal collapse, and everything drops down to one world, called Battle World, which is a piece of all the broken worlds that have been shattered because of the multiversal collapse, and everybody's vying for control of it. It turns out at the end of all that the Battle World has been maintained by Victor Von Doom, who has Molecule Man in his employ. So he's been using Molecule Man as the gravity.
Molecule Man being like the antecedent to Ant-Man.
I don't think so. No, this is somebody who's like he is maybe, but he became like a cosmic power. He became like a cosmic power, and Victor Von Doom is using that cosmic power to keep the universe existing. And within that space, Reed Richards, who's been trying to solve this puzzle and figure out what's at the bottom of this ever since the universe has started collapsing to begin with, right? In these incursions, which is what we've seen now in the movies. We've seen the incursions happening.
Right.
So Reed Richards finds his way to Victor and Molecule Man, and he's standing there. And he's like, all of this is because of your trauma, Victor. Like, all of this is because of the scar and your ableism. This is because you're such an emotional mess. None of this would be necessary. We would have a good universe if you just weren't. So he's like, And Molecule Man, I forget exactly how it
Is
happened.
is that statement not in itself ableist?
Well, Reed actually it was Reed was correct. Like
I'm not look. I'm not saying he's
yeah.
wrong. I'm just saying, like on
So
paper, isn't that statement itself ableist?
if it wasn't an accurate observation about like
Yeah.
it's risky of Reed to be making that observation. You're right, but he
Okay.
goes and he says, and so I forget exactly how it happened, but basically it boils down to Reed getting one wish from Molecule Man somehow, and he's like,
Okay.
I wish Victor had never been disfigured. I wish that the acts. I wish Victor had avoided. I wish that he didn't have to do this to himself.
Right.
And the universe is reborn, and Secret Wars is ended, and Victor comes out of the experience as a favored son of Latveria, and with all these issues and all these traumas, and part of the system. But he's realized the problem with systems of power, and he's realized also, of course, being Victor, that he is the only person with the will to fix these problems. And Tony has disappeared because he's an artificial intelligence and he's dead or something. I forget. So there's no Iron Man. And this is when Riri Williams from Black Panther 2 comes in and says, I can be Iron Man. But at the same time, Victor also says, I can be Iron Man. And Victor Von Doom builds an Iron Man suit and just starts solving the world's problems in the most uncompromising way possible. He's like, first, just to let people know who I am, I'm going to end crime.
Love that. That's such a Tony Stark statement.
And so
I'm your nuclear deterrent.
Yep. And he says, and he's like, he sends out a message to all the bad guys, like Kingpin and everybody. And he's like, we're going to have a meeting of all the greatest supervillains. I'm not tolerating any absence from this meeting.
Oh, and he death notes them? Okay.
Well, he just assassinates Kingpin in front of everyone else.
Okay.
And says, does anyone have any questions? Here's how you're going to conduct yourselves going forward.
Right.
Okay, I've solved crime. Let's get to the bigger stuff. And Victor starts working on things like world hunger and global security and sword and shield and all of these things. Of course, S.H.I.E.L.D. is petrified of what Victor is capable of and what this could all mean. Right now, the only Fantastic Four member who's not lost in the cosmos is Ben Grimm, who's working with S.H.I.E.L.D. And so Ben Grimm starts hunting Victor down because he's like, I don't know what this game is, but it's dangerous and it's stopping right now. You see what I'm saying? No, absolutely not. And
how does this pertain to what we were talking about again? Just remind me.
I
feel like I got lost.
I got lost, but that's because I love Infamous Iron Man so much. Anyways, if you haven't read
it, clearly it's great.
I loved it.
I think the way that it's going to get addressed in the actual MCU, I still don't think we have seen the end of Doctor Strange kind of thing.
No.
Despite the absolute just like misgivings of the second one, which was just such a disappointment.
I disagree. I enjoyed the heck out of the second Doctor Strange movie.
There's a lot to enjoy about it, but there's also a lot that could have been better about it.
I think that Wanda was a mess. Like, not in her actions, but in how she was.
Okay, so I don't remember if I've ever actually told you this, but I am convinced, again, especially like given what I know about how the MCU operates on like the production level and stuff like that, and the development level, where like I know that there is a directive from Feige and the other producers that is to leave the stories as malleable as they can be, so that they can, like, do their consumer data report thing, whatever, and figure out what the best direction to take the narrative is, kind of thing. I am convinced that when Loki season 1, you've seen season 1, right?
Yeah.
Just not season 2. When Loki season 1 was made and aired, Wanda was the bad guy. The ultimate bad guy. No one is going to convince me differently. And it's a giveaway. There's a giveaway in the 4th episode when Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, and can I just take 1 second to say that is one of the best castings in the history of Hollywood, by the way.
It's really good.
I can't remember the last time there was a character written that only one actor could play, and they got that actor to do it.
Do you want me to
Like
tell you another
legitimately.
character? I'm not this. No disrespect to
Sure.
Owen Wilson, but I'm gonna
Sure.
Paul Giamatti,
In?
Mobius. No, I'm saying he could have been Mobius.
Oh. Sure. I mean, I don't know. Just Owen Wilson's performance there, like,
It was
look,
beautiful.
I've
It
never
was specific. It was wonderful. I love Owen Wilson.
I've never disliked Owen Wilson, but like, there's a lot of stuff that he's been in that I'm just like, it's all right. Like I've never actively disliked him. Like, he was amazing in Wedding Crashers. He was great. He was great in Zoolander. And
Owen
then
Wilson,
like,
going further than that, Owen Wilson
yeah.
is the reason why Ben Stiller will never make a better movie than Zoolander. Owen Wilson and
yeah, sure. I would agree with that.
Like, you can't rebuild that chemistry. Like,
yeah. Well, it's also I would actually also say that Owen Wilson is the reason why Vince Vaughn will never make a better movie than Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
And like I know there are some people out there like the oh my God, help me, like the swingers purists. Oh God, help me. What's the guy's name? Favreau, Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
Right. And I am a massive fan of Jon Favreau. I adore the man. And like clearly Swingers is how he broke in, right? Like that was his big break in. I'm sorry. I think that the Wedding Crashers was better. And Owen Wilson as Mobius. I don't understand why that man was not winning awards. Same with Tom Hiddleston. Honestly, like they should have been winning acting awards for their performances. But anyway, either way, I'm getting off track here. Mobius goes into the what's her name, Renslayer's office, right after they've captured Mobius, after they've captured Loki and her name, oh God, Sylvie.
Yeah.
And we get an insert, right, of that kind of like period tape, spooled tape player that's in Renslayer's office, the big spools, right?
Yeah.
They're playing the music, and what is the brand of that tape player, right? It's Akai, Akai, which, if you know Japanese, is the adjectival form of red.
I see.
And they do an insert of it. Not just like it's just in the background and it happened. No. I
remember how we got on this.
The frame. They put the frame fully on it, and it's front and center. And like, let's be fair, red is a very dominant part of the color scheme in the TVA.
Yeah, but that's not
for a lot of it.
No. So the reason I brought it up is because there was a Scarlet Witch run during that time with really gorgeous Art Nouveau artwork all over it, and it's all about Scarlet. It's Agatha all along. It's Scarlet Witch walking the Witch's Road, and the only person that she can get to help her is Agatha, who she killed many years prior. So Agatha's ghost and Scarlet Witch are walking that road while the Scarlet Witch tries to realize her potential as an occultist. And it is.
I'm not trying to ever like speak out against the canon of the comics. Yeah. Right? Like to me they're separate. Right? The canon of the comics is the canon of the comics. The canon of the MCU is the canon of the MCU.
Even to the extent that they know which universe is which. Like, even to the extent that there's a number on it. Like.
Right. Yes, for sure. But to me, I mean, like, we also need to remember the chronology of how Phase 4 rolled out, right? WandaVision was the first thing from the MCU after Endgame. And Loki was the second thing.
Yeah.
Came right after WandaVision. Yeah. What's the cutscene right at the end of WandaVision? It's Wanda learning how to astral project. And it's this cutscene where she's in, I don't know, Maine. Pick a wilderness. Yeah. Alaska, Russia, whatever. She's in the wilderness, and there's this house, and it's all a oneer, right? The camera's pushing in on this, house in the middle of this cabin, whatever, in the middle of nowhere, and we see Wanda outside, like, I don't know, sweeping the porch or gardening, but there are multiple of her. And then we see the actual her, right, in the back, Is it? It's she doesn't have the Darkholm at this point, does she? I don't remember. I don't think she
She
does.
doesn't.
Maybe she
No.
does. She
No.
does. No, no, she does. Right? Because Agatha had it at the end of WandaVision.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, and she's like doing like the meditative like cross-legged ritualistic thing in front of the Darkholm, and so we see that that is the actual Wanda,
Yeah.
right? And she has all of these other versions of herself doing things around the house, maybe as decoys, maybe actually doing. Who cares? And then we get Loki.
Yeah.
No one is going to be able to tell me that initially Wanda was not the original master. Wanda was the big bad,
Yeah. I think
right?
you're right.
She absolutely was the big bad. And then I don't know whatever happened. They did focus groups or they did test audiences or whatever, and they got changed to all of a sudden like Wanda's story kind of ends in Multiverse of Madness now.
Yeah.
Which is like, no, no, no. Why didn't you just let Wanda be the big bad? That would have gone so well.
Yeah.
It would have gone over so well. That would have been a really compelling storyline too, I think. Like literally, Wanda's character objective would never have changed throughout
Yeah.
all of Phase 4,
Yeah.
even before Phase 4,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
what a compelling line. She's taking it to the point where she's breaking time and space to get what she wants,
Yep.
selfishly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it would have been so good.
Yep.
And, this is why I say, like, this is why, honestly, like, I have not an awesome sentiment towards Multiverse of Madness, which is
Yeah.
just like because
I see.
they bastardized the greater story in
Yeah.
order to do something again, and it's like it was just the precursor to Quantumania, and I will forever in my entire life be indebted to the MCU. I probably wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger to try and become a filmmaker if I hadn't been inspired by the MCU and fallen in love with those stories. Quantumania was a dumpster fire. It
Well,
was a straight up dumpster fire.
this
They
brings.
it was executives thinking that they could just make a bunch of money by putting a lot of shiny things in front of an audience and that nothing else was needed.
I am going to say this. I doubt very seriously, first of all, that Peyton Reed felt that way about the film. Nobody sets out to make a dumpster fire. Nobody said, like, so let's put that aside for a second.
I don't think they care. I think they thought that they could take it for granted. That's what I genuinely think. I thought they didn't. They were of the perspective that they didn't have to make an outstanding, masterful movie like they had to for the entire first 3 phases of the MCU.
I think that we've had a lot of conversations about how different people view stories in different ways. One of the prevailing ideas in film development that I disagree with is the idea that good storytelling is good storytelling and that the medium doesn't matter. This is why Brad Bird's.
Oh, right. Well, that's like, what you and I have talked about that quite a bit. Yeah.
I think that Peyton Reed came at Quantum Vision or Quantumania with the idea that like it's all in the comics. That's all that you need. And so it was all happenstance. It was all things that happened. It was all big reveals. It was all this. It was all that. Like,
so actually, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to this. Were the events of Quantumania almost like a carbon copy of the comics?
I'm not going to say it was a carbon copy, but it was the writing from the comics. It was
Okay.
if you had presented that story,
Was Bill Murray's cameo a character in the comics?
No, I don't think so. But or wait, I don't remember. Yes, probably. But
the most unnecessary cameo I have ever seen in a movie.
What I think happened is that they pulled characters, they created characters from the books in order to tell a story through things happening to a character. He was presented with this, he was presented with that, and it all came back to Kang. If you had read that book as a Fantastic Four book, I don't know if Ant-Man goes in that direction or not. I haven't read a lot of Ant-Man. But if you had put that down as a Fantastic Four book, it would have been one of the better runs. Like, and because it's literature. Because it's and it's thematically potent. It's not aimless literature. It's just
I have no idea what the themes of Quantumania were. As a movie, I have
It's
no.
It's about Ant-Man.
Remember theme is thesis, right? So it's like, what is the observation it's trying to get the audience to make?
it's about whether or not ordinary people can be heroes. Ant-Man as a film franchise has always been about
Yeah.
an average Joe trying to keep up with the Avengers. That's always right in the first Ant-Man
What
movie.
Kang is though too. Kang is that's kind of the purpose of Loki season 2 is that we get to see that the original. Well, actually, I guess I don't know if Victor Timely is the original. If
but
I don't actually know that, but it's like that's the whole point is that he is ordinary.
but the point of Kang as
Yeah.
a character is that he's ascended all of those things. He's one of those characters. He's like the Grand Evolutionary in his scope.
Well,
Like
he's the Rick. He's the Rickest Rick.
he's the Rickest Rick, but he's ricked
Yeah.
himself into like immortality and galactic conquest multiple times over. Like Kang
Right.
is from a future where he's already won, and he's just
Right.
and-
But this is also like very analogous to the Rick and Morty actual like macro canon storyline, which is where Rick has built a wall around the infinite multiverse.
Yes.
And they call this the central finite curve, where the parts of the multiverse that they actually have access to are only the universes where Rick is the smartest being in the universe.
So here's and there's a great that's actually stolen from Fantastic Four. There's a Reed Richards about that, but that's a whole nother Fantastic Four story. But in the case of Ant-Man versus Ant-Man is the worst person to be dealing with Kang from that thematic perspective because Kang has opened his mind to the point where there's really nothing more he needs to know. He's learned enough to be able to wrangle and conquer anything. So
anything, yeah.
He's
not God, but for all intents and purposes, he might as well be.
He might as well be, and he understands the distinction. He sees gods as threats, and he's making those plans. He's dealing with those people. He's a cosmic threat. And
out of curiosity, just because I don't know anything about the comics, is there any actual narrative correlation, crossover, whatever, into the actual like gods, like Thor and Loki and Odin and Asgard and that plane kind of thing?
Kang is looking to play on that battlefield using his wits. So Kang is.
Oh, so he sees himself as one of the gods.
He sees himself as the Batman to Thor's Superman.
Okay.
He wants to work on that. Like
that's a really good analogy. Because Kang is self-made and Thor is just kind of born with his powers.
Yep. So he's acquired these abilities, he's acquired these skills, and he would love to steamroll Asgard. He would love to steamroll all of these places, and he's working on it.
Why doesn't he? Oh, he's working on it. Okay, he's working on it.
So, but Kang is also somebody who plays a very long game. He's got more patience than just about anybody. The war that he's fighting in the present is a war he's been fighting in the future for the last several thousand years. Well,
that's why he wins, is because he's patient
and
clearly
brilliant, and all of it. So Ant-Man is being like, I just want to take care of my daughter. And Kang's like, you fucking mortal. Silence.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're right, and you know what? That would probably all shine through in a book or a comic. But it's totally lost in the movie. It's
there on the page. It's just that it's a passive story. It's a reactive story. That's the core issue with it. And so because it's a reactive story, they have to dig up more plot.
Yeah.
And so they come up with all this other stuff. But they're not wrong for thinking it's a good. I don't blame Peyton Reed for falling in love with the story, but what I will say is this: in the early days, in the first few movies, they found a cool director and they trusted that director to help build the studio. And I'm not just talking about Jon Favreau. I'm talking about people like Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh's Thor is an exquisite work of art because Thor does have an action. He's trying to prove himself as worthy of not just his father's love, but of rule and of the heroic title with which he's been bestowed. He's trying to prove that he's Thor, and trying to prove that he's Thor screws everything up. And he puts his father in a position where his father needs to take action against him. The reason why I saw the trailer and I was petrified. I saw the diner. I'll have another. Right?
Oh, the trailer for Thor?
Yeah. It scared the crap out of me. because I was like, don't make a fish out of water story. Don't make a dumb 80s comedy that doesn't work out of Thor, please.
But they didn't.
They didn't. They made a water out of fish story. The joke of the
Yeah.
diner scene is not that Thor doesn't get these human ways. The joke of the diner scene is that these idiotic mortals are serving coffee and pancakes to. Oh, he likes it. Okay, he likes it. We're good.
I'll have another.
I'll have another. And you guys.
Throw the cup down.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this could have gone another way. You know what I mean? And it didn't.
And why didn't they bring back Kenneth Branagh for Dark World?
I'm guessing money. Like, it's probably exactly
money. What? What money? That argument makes no sense to me. You can't tell me that the production budget of Dark World wasn't 4x what the original Thor was. You can't tell me that.
No, but that doesn't mean that they weren't dealing with production concerns, and they had a different slate. They had a different plan they had a different strategic plan for Phase 2 than they did for Phase 1. End of conversation.
I'm looking this up now. The first Thor had a production budget of $150 million USD. The production budget of Thor Dark World. Okay, well, Dark World clearly didn't have 600. So Dark World was only $20 million more. It was only $170 million.
But at the end of the day, what I loved about those early movies, and this is actually a plug for Alien, was the same thing I loved about the initial Alien franchise. For 4 movies, the producers of Aliens had a magnificent knack for finding innovative directors who wanted to tell a cool story in the Alien universe using the basic precepts of the world and letting them do what they wanted. A lot of people hated Alien 4, but it
was that Resurrection?
What's that?
It was Alien 4 Resurrection?
Yeah. That movie was a freaking hoot. Like, number one, it's Jean-Pierre Jeunet directing a Joss Whedon script.
Okay.
Who in their right mind brings Jean-Pierre Jeunet to Hollywood to direct a horror film? It's brilliant. Of course it's very campy, and of course it.
Well, this is what I said. It's like you always find the best results from people who are known for something else.
Yep.
I remember a few years ago, I was having this discussion with a friend of mine over if they were to make a live action Rick and Morty, who plays Rick? Yep. Right, and everything you get the standard Christopher Lloyd, because obviously it's modeled after Doc and Marty from Back to the Future. So and it was no, it's you guys are not thinking about this the right way. You gotta cast someone who really loves to lean into the dark humor of self-hatred, kind of thing. You cast Mark Ruffalo as Rick.
Yeah,
and he will kill it. He will do such a good job.
You don't cast
as
Christopher
Rick.
Walken. You don't cast Christopher.
You don't cast Christopher Walken. You don't cast Christian Bale. You don't. You cast Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is the best actor I have been able to come up with for Rick, and he would do such an amazing job. And I don't think he's ever done a role like that in his life, and I would have nothing but trust for him.
If they had an amazing script, if they had a really strong script with a really strong line of action, and it was super tight, then actually I would say, let's give it to Bill Burr. Let's cut Bill Burr some slack.
I love Bill Burr. Okay, I think that Bill Burr is really funny. Bill Burr's kind of the redhead guy, right? He had some spots in Breaking Bad as the kind of the fixer a little bit for Saul and stuff like that. He was the trooper. He was the Imperial trooper who turns, right?
Yep.
The Imperial Guard who turns and No, dude, Bill Burr is great. I don't know. It's too on brand for him, I feel like.
Well, it depends on the
the thing for me about if I were casting the character of Rick, the thing about Rick is that Rick is an infinite being. So Rick has to be able to play all of the things.
Yeah.
Right?
I see.
And
valid.
I think that Bill Burr would be very good at playing Rick C-137, but I think there are versions of Rick that are less apt, that he is a less apt choice for, and I think that Mark Ruffalo could do them all.
What would you say about Ed Norton?
And I was thinking about Ed Norton. Um, the truth of the matter is that I can't see Ed Norton outside of I've typecasted him in my own brain kind of thing. Um, a lot of that comes from his performance in American History X, which is, I think that's the best movie he will ever make, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And like,
No.
I have also heard that he is somewhat difficult to work with on set, kind of thing. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as
well-rounded enough to play Rick in your
loving enough. That's the whole thing, is like Rick is a character at the end of the day who is filled with love, but his hate has poisoned all of it, kind of thing. But that doesn't mean the love isn't there. And I've never seen,
you know who would be a good Rick? You know who I
I've
would
never
cast?
seen Ed Norton act a character that is just filled with love, kind of thing.
Hugh Jackman? What about Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman would be a good choice. It's clearly that Hugh Jackman would not be a bad choice. I also actually think that if we were to age up Ryan Reynolds by about 20 years, Ryan Reynolds would probably be a good choice too.
He's probably the person.
The truth is that there is a movie, Ed Norton and Ben Stiller, called Keep the Faith. And Ed Norton actually has some really outstanding and poignant lines in that movie. But that all said and done, I don't know. Here's what gets me about Ed Norton. I don't ever see really deep multidimensionality in the characters Ed Norton plays. Even in American History X, we get like a tiny bit of it.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot. He's very much. I'm not gonna blame Ed Norton for this. It could just be the roles, right? But like, his characters always seem to be so much in their lane that there isn't anything else to them, which is not the same as being one-dimensional. It's not like he's playing one-dimensional characters, but it's like the characters, there isn't any more depth to them.
He's not observant as an actor, is what it comes down to. He's not watching everybody else. He's in his performance, and he's in his movie, and he's not.
It does strike me a little bit like Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
Kind of thing in terms of like acting technique.
Yes.
Yeah. He does strike me a little bit like Aaron Eckhart in that sense.
I think you're right about that. So
but yes, I do think that Hugh Jackman would probably be a good cast there. I still maintain that Mark Ruffalo is my pick, but
this headset is dying.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this, I'm like literally trying to keep the cable.
So I have one last question about Portal, because that ultimately is what we are on about here.
Yeah.
How do you make the narrative cohesive? Right, we started talking about stunts and ratchets, and then we started talking about action sequences, and that led to Marvel and all this. But like, the truth is, we don't have dialogue. We have monologue and maybe some like emotional vocalization by Shell at some points when it is genuinely called for, if the actor is really feeling it. But like, no words. No, we don't
need that scripted, and it doesn't need to be like. So what I would say is, first of all,
where's the story, right? Like that's actually is like what we I think we've like done a good job of fleshing out the details of the context and what needs to exist in order for there to be a story. What is the actual story?
It's literally Shell's effort to get the cake, which begins with her trying to work with GLaDOS and give GLaDOS what she wants.
Let me rephrase my question then. How is the movie just a series of puzzles, or is it like an episodic series where it's like one puzzle per episode kind of thing?
This is what I was talking about. So I think in Act 1,
okay,
we have Shell learning to solve puzzles for GLaDOS, and we have GLaDOS teaching Shell the rules. So you have the cube, you have these things, and I think the way to do that is through patience.
Is it just one puzzle though?
No, I think in Act 1 you've probably got about 3 puzzles.
Okay, so here's my question. What are the puzzles so that the audience just doesn't get immediately bored the moment the second one starts?
Well, the puzzle is going. Well, there's a couple of issues here. So first of
Okay.
all, you have Shell try like, hey, let's do some science. Let's have some cake, right?
Sure.
And she does the puzzle. She figures out how to use the portal gun. You see what I'm saying? She does all these things, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then Shell like Shell like stands and waits for her cake, and
Okay.
GLaDOS has to get her in the elevator. So
Okay.
so you can have GLaDOS like coaxing her to the elevator, and then you have Shell like stopping getting distracted by screens, looking at things, like looking at the screen, maybe even like pushing a cake
Yeah,
button.
childish kind of
Right.
eagerness and curiosity.
And then
Curiosity is the word I'm
presses
looking
like a
for.
button with a cake symbol, and GLaDOS is like, "Yes,
Yeah.
there's cake, but first we have to do our work." And like gets her in the elevator, goes to the second one, and
Yeah,
this,
I'm envisioning this scene taking place of a button that has
yeah,
a giant cake on it,
yeah,
and Phil pushes it, and there's like a meh, and you hear GLaDOS being like, "Not yet, you have to do it," and then just
yeah,
and there's like this
yeah.
kind of petulant just hammering of the button kind of
Like,
thing.
and I think it might be even more like it's first like a pushing of the thing, like,
Yeah.
and then, or I was thinking more like a touch screen because I think it has touch. I think we could like, because you want it to appear. I don't know. We'll talk about the technology of it in a minute, but that's all. You know what I'm saying? So she gets the elevator, she goes into the next thing, and then you've got her like okay, one more test, fine. And then you've got the companion cube, and GLaDOS is coaching her, and she's like, okay, 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 I'll try. Like, and then the test turns out to be really dangerous, and all of a sudden you're like, the cake is not worth it. She's like, no, I really want like, and then like, and then so you have this thing, right? And she does the thing, and it's dangerous spikes and whatever. You know what I'm saying? This is a much more life
Can
threatening.
I? There is a question here that I do think it needs to be asked, and I just realized it.
Yeah,
Is Shell as a clone
yeah,
and fairly infantile in her, we'll just call it cognitive development,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is she aware of her mortality, the dangers of mortality, or just like the risks and the consequences of the dangerous puzzles?
I think that she is. I think she is aware of her mortality.
Like, let's also consider, right? Like, Shell takes no fall damage. So, how would she have an understanding of danger unless she has experienced some form of consequence,
I
which
think
she
that she.
doesn't experience
I
unless
think
she
she
dies?
has. I think she has an intuitive sense of danger. I think that she straps on the things, so she
Okay.
doesn't think of herself as a person who can't fall. She thinks of herself as a person who can fall. And I think in the first puzzle, I think GLaDOS has to teach her to use the springs. So, or
Okay.
or at least Shell has to figure out how to use the springs to GLaDOS might want to see her die. You see what I'm saying? But like
Hmm.
she figures out how to use these tools. So
Uh huh.
she doesn't want to die. But she wants the cake more than she doesn't want to die, which is again absurd. But we're going with it, right? And there's
Right.
only
No, no, I'm fine with that.
so so
Um.
so
Yeah.
she finishes the second puzzle, and it's really hair raising. She almost doesn't make it, but she does make it. And then she's like, cake now. You know what I'm saying? Like, or she finds a representation of cake or something, and it's like, cake, cake, cake. And GLaDOS is like, we have to do a little bit more science, baby. Like, get in the elevator. And then this third puzzle is clearly a death trap. Like, like it is for sure going to kill her. So there's no cake to be found here. So this is the end of the first act now. So that's a reasonable amount of work. And so Shell has to get outside of the trap, get outside of the puzzle, and find help. And so she's going to be like, I want cake. And she's going to go find artificial intelligences. You know what I'm saying? She's going to start exploring and trying to find resources that she can use or find the cake even. And then, but if she can't find the cake, she finds Wheatley. You see what I'm saying? And Wheatley's like,
Okay.
well, cake is delicious. I can understand why you. And of course, Wheatley's not going to know what she wants first. She's going to have to find Wheatley and find a way to explain to Wheatley what she wants. You see what I'm saying? And then
Right.
Wheatley's going to be like, well, that makes perfect sense. Let's get you some cake. Like, and she's so, but now she's suspicious. She understands that all these death traps are death traps. Wheatley is going to have to be the one to convince her into certain puzzles, to do certain science. It's all falling apart because Shell has already broken the system and she's broken the experiment already. By the end of Act 1, Shell has broken the experiment in her effort to get the cake.
Wouldn't GLaDOS just try to kill her
Yeah, and she
if she was
does.
actually breaking the experiment? Like,
Yes.
no, but I mean, like, in a machine thinking way. Like, okay, this has gone tits up, neurotoxin.
Um,
Like, why would GLaDOS entertain the possibility of Shell surviving?
because she's getting data.
But then why does she want Shell dead?
And here is where we need to know what experiment GLaDOS. We need to good questions.
Yeah.
This is where we need to figure out exactly what GLaDOS's initial experiment was.
Prime objective is, yeah.
Because we can find answers to those questions if we know what she actually wants.
Right. But this is why I was like stuck on that earlier, because to me, like, that's like you can't build anything else until you know the answer to that question, kind of thing.
Well, but we can build Shell and Shell's mission, and we can also rebuild the world around it. You're right. That's a hole that needs to get filled.
That's true.
But
yeah.
But Shell's arc is what's driving the thing. Shell is pushing this as far as she can until she realizes she's not going to get cake from GLaDOS. That's the end of the first act. As soon as she realizes she's not going to get cake from GLaDOS, it's over. Like, I'm not going to stay here and wait for you to kill me. I'm going to go get some cake. Peace out. Like, and
whoa. I just for specificity, I don't think Shell's internal monologue is, I'm not going to stand here and wait for you to kill me. I'm going to go get cake. I think the monologue is, I'm not going to stand here and wait for you to give me cake. I'm going to go get it myself.
Yes, I think it's more innocent than that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and she thinks there's cake here.
Right. Yeah. No. She doesn't think it. She has this like internal certainty that the cake, it exists. It's here somewhere.
Yep.
Right. Like I have to find it. Like there's just like that. I don't know. It is kind of like that juvenile sense of just certainty, like and positivity, like in the face of no actual factual evidence, kind of thing. But like I think that's a totally reasonable like line.
So then she's got to go find it, and she starts finding the other things that are out there to be found. She finds immediately because she's searching.
Well, this is why I asked if the end of Act 1 is like she finds like the room, like the horror, right? Like she finds like a relic.
I think that's in Act 2. I think she finds those things because she's looking for them, and not because she lucked into them. She finds those things because she's bailing on GLaDOS.
Right, but still looking for cake. I don't think she's looking for horrific evidence. I think she's looking for cake and comes across the horrific evidence.
Correct, but she doesn't start looking for the cake on her own until after the beginning of Act 2. Act 2 begins the moment she gets out of the test.
So is it like could you see it possibly as being something like,
which is good?
Okay, so you said you saw 3 puzzles in Act 1 is what it was?
Yep.
All right, so we've done 3 puzzles, right?
And we break the third one, and we break the third one. In the middle of the third one, she's out.
Okay. So we haven't completed 3 puzzles.
No.
We've completed 2 puzzles. Act 1 ends in the middle of the third one.
Correct.
Where Shell, like, let's say, would you accept it if instead of Shell trying to do this insane portal jump over lava and spikes and acid, whatever, right? Whatever you want to call it, she sees like an air duct
and
off to the side and is just like, fuck this, I'm going over there. And like goes about that way. And then all of a sudden it's no longer a mouse in the labyrinth. It's now mouse has escaped the labyrinth and is running around in the lab trying to escape the lab.
Correct.
Kind of
Correct.
thing.
Now,
okay.
I would want to be more clever about that. I think like there's a lot of moving parts and things. This. So I would say Shell triggers some movement of some kind. You see what I'm saying? Because in the game, you don't have the ability to act until the puzzle has arranged itself.
Right.
But I think it's as simple as her slipping a portal through like one of the moving parts. Like a piece of plate moves and she gets the portal behind it. Like to find out what's and then like you see what I'm saying? So we don't even need like a convenient air duct.
Oh,
like
you're thinking about this as like a Disney ride, where it's like the moment, like if you like, I don't know, have you ever been on the
My wife is a Disney. I've been on all the Disney rides.
Yeah, you've been on them, so you know what I'm talking about. Is it a small world after all? Is that it? It's the boat in the river, and it's just like a little like
Yeah,
mellow, gentle cruise, and they're
yeah,
singing the song the whole
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But you know what really got me though, because I'm very hyper aware of my surroundings. Just that's
yeah,
naturally what I am. At one point, I looked up,
yep,
and if you look up, you can see the particle board paneled ceilings,
yes,
kind of thing.
yes,
And it totally reminds you that you're in a fucking warehouse,
yep,
kind of thing.
yep,
you know
yep.
and so is it like that kind of thing where like
Yeah,
if you pull back the curtain the tiniest bit, you find the skeleton
yep,
almost kind of
yes.
thing.
And she gets,
Okay.
and that is in Portal 2. Like that's all in the game.
Right.
So, but she sees these parts moving, and she's like, "Pew!" Like, and you know what I mean. She doesn't wait for the thing to finish setting up. She slips a portal right through all the Gladys's like, and so she gets outside where all the arms move all the panels, and she gets into that space, and
Right.
there's like, and then she starts looking around, and she starts finding like,
Squid Game. That's what I
yeah,
was thinking. I was thinking of Squid Game with
yeah.
this whole thing,
So she's
where it's
yes,
yeah.
yes, and then she gets into the back corners, and that's where she starts finding where the scientists lived and the wreckage of
That's
whatever.
actually the comp. That's the comp for this. Actually, I think
Yeah,
is Squid Game,
yeah,
because it's you have the labyrinth, right, which is what the players are supposed to see,
yes,
right? And then there's everything else on that big ass island, which they're not supposed to see, but which still exists
yep. It's not
and
a
has
good
purpose.
it's not a good
You know,
movie, but in terms of the presentation of how this works, I'm actually thinking of Cube, which you might be too young to have seen.
I am vaguely familiar with. Isn't the cube like typically always ranked on like at the top of like worst movies ever made or something like that?
Probably it's not a good movie, but it is trying to
Or
make you.
am I thinking of The Room?
The Room is
The
yes,
Room is constantly ranked at the top of worst movies ever made.
yes, yes. Cube was an independent
All right.
horror film in the '90s about
I've definitely heard of The Cube. I've definitely
um,
heard of The Cube.
and it's very much like all of what we're talking about, where it's each
Okay.
room has its own thing. It is very episodic. The Cube
Yeah.
runs into all the problems that we're going to run into, like,
Okay.
and it does not overcome any of them. But this is an
Would you say
opportunity.
that Squid Game does overcome them?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and so I think that that is, and so it becomes her journey to and of course she can't have GLaDOS killing her, but she now has the chance to explore Aperture, find like, and Wheatley is going to be the one who pulls her back into the experiments because Wheatley wants to take control of GLaDOS, and that's where GLaDOS is. You see what I'm saying? So he needs to go to GLaDOS, and he's gonna be like, we gotta, and so, but it's Wheatley's job to convince her. It's not her job to go. She doesn't go. He convinces her, and he's like, "There's no cake. There's no cake. Like, look all you want." And she's gonna try and find the cake, and it's like, fine, we'll go get the cake from inside the thing.
Yeah, but ultimately, Wheatley is working in concert with GLaDOS, right?
Wheatley is trying to supplant GLaDOS. Wheatley is a power hungry little shit.
Is that actually how it happens? I thought in
Yep.
the actual game Wheatley was working with GLaDOS.
He pretends. I forget exactly. There's a lot of lying. There's a lot of
Well, yeah, I
lying.
mean, deception is absolutely integral to all of it.
So, but no,
Um,
in the end, you no, in the end, Wheatley is not working with GLaDOS. Everybody's an enemy. Everybody's against everybody else, and and that's the deal. So 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 Wheatley's going to draw you back in. Only now you're self-aware. You understand that GLaDOS is out to kill you, and she's trying to use the traps to get what she wants. And then finally, with Wheatley and everything else,
oh, you
it all
know
comes.
what?
What's that?
Let me read this off real quick.
Yeah.
Um, Wheatley. Yeah, Shell and GLaDOS actually team up.
Yep.
I didn't realize this. Claims to have turned a new leaf. The
Yeah, because
planets
GLaDOS
stop
GLaDOS winds up on the
Wheatley.
potato. GLaDOS winds up on the potato because Wheatley's taken over.
Right. Yes, the potato power exhibition held on the ill-fated Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. Wheatley reveals he plans to sabotage the tunnels and neurotoxin supplies so that when they face GLaDOS, she will be unarmed. They carry it out. They are successful. It is at this point, blah, 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 blah. Wheatley's in Potato S. What a great name for something. Potato S. Wheatley's attempt is to humiliate. At this point, GLaDOS reveals that Wheatley was designed to be a moron in order to dampen GLaDOS's brain power so that she wouldn't attempt to murder everyone in the facility. Angered by this revelation, Wheatley throws her in the lift with Shell, and in a fit of rage smashes the lift downwards, where the lift floor collapses, and they fall into the depths of the facility. Falling several miles down, Shell awakens to find herself in the very bowels of Aperture in the ruins of the old facility. Witnesses the potato GLaDOS being abducted by a bird.
Yep.
And
the all speaker, of this is that it's that same episodic solve a puzzle, get a prize, solve a puzzle, get a prize.
Right. As a voice recording plays welcoming the visitor Aperture, the speaker introduces himself as Cave Johnson, founder and CEO of Aperture, introduces his secretary Caroline. Black Mesa is revealed in a misguided move in there's some time period here actually established for us. It is revealed that in a misguided move in the 1980s, Cave bought $70 million worth of moon rocks to grind up. The resulting gel was toxic. Cave Johnson falls gravely ill. Shell is reunited with Potato GLaDOS, found in a bird's nest. GLaDOS insists they need to stop corrupted Wheatley. GLaDOS's attitude is slowly changing. Praising Shell's progress, claims to have turned a new leaf. GLaDOS observes a poster about robot paradoxes, comes up with a plan to stop Wheatley. I'm starting to remember some of this now in the gameplay. They return to find the facility in chaos. Wheatley's been modifying the test chambers to his liking, including the Franken turrets. And confront Wheatley. GLaDOS attempts to shut him down, presenting a logical paradox. It fails as he nonchalantly provides a false answer, apparently too stupid to understand it. The Franken turrets short circuit, humorously indicating that they are smarter than Wheatley. Wheatley hints he's found other test subjects. He is a surprise to die for coming soon. He unleashes his surprise early when Shell steps on a booby-trapped aerial faith plate, which transports them to a platform surrounded by spiked crushing plates. Escaping the trap, Shell and GLaDOS make their escape through the inner facility, attempting Wheatley's attempts to kill them. They come across a room containing rejected, corrupted cores, and GLaDOS formulates a plan. She stays behind it to carry out. While Shell makes her way to Wheatley's lair for the final confrontation, where he reveals the facility will self-destruct in 6 minutes. They do battle, and during its course, Shell manages to attach 3 corrupted cores onto Wheatley. This results in a core corruption of 100%, and the announcer intervenes to initiate a core transfer. GLaDOS inserts herself as the substitute core and hurries Shell to press the stalemate resolution button. Wheatley, anticipating this outcome, has booby-trapped the button, and it explodes as Shell attempts to press it. She survives the explosion to the disdain of Wheatley. With the last of her strength, she grabs the handheld portal device and shoots a portal at the moon's surface. The resulting portals cause everything in the room to be sucked into the vacuum of space, including Shell, but she manages to hang on by grabbing hold of the panicking Wheatley. GLaDOS uses a mechanical arm to detach Wheatley from his body, who is sucked into space, and pulls Shell back through the closing portal. Shell wakes up later to find a worried Atlas NP body watching over her, and GLaDOS back in her body and back in charge of the facility. She thanks Shell for helping find the Caroline inside of her, before promptly deleting all traces of her. She reveals she has become weary of trying to kill Shell, and that the best course of solution is to give Shell what she wants, her freedom. She sends Shell on her way to the surface, where along the way she is serenaded by a turret opera. I remember this in the credits. Reaching the top, a door opens and Shell steps out into a picturesque sunny cornfield where the door promptly shuts behind her. Taking in her freedom, GLaDOS surprises Shell by throwing out the weighted companion cube she is incinerated in the original portal, and the door to the facility is closed shut. The game ends with a wistful Wheatley floating aimlessly in space, admitting if he was able to go back, he would say he was sorry. So yeah, I had forgotten that Wheatley goes rogue, as kind of like the idiot in charge.
And the other cores are amazing. They're so funny.
Have you right? I do. I remember the other cores also being hilarious. Like there's a psychosis core that just like screams inane like babble at you kind of thing. That's the green one if I remember correctly. And yeah, so what's all really interesting to me about this is there is a reversal for GLaDOS, the tropic, moment of redemption kind of thing.
We might not need all of that plot. That's a whole lot.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, it becomes what's relevant to Shell's effort to get the cake, and obviously realizing that none of these beings are remotely trustworthy and everyone is going to screw her and there's no cake in the facility. That's the moment when Shell needs to start trying to get out. And and that probably comes after Wheatley takes charge, I imagine. Um,
I think, yeah, I mean, like, I kind of at this point, having just read all of that, now that I have refreshed my, like, I had totally forgotten about this, but rereading all of that, I'm now catching, like, snapshot memories of
there's a
the
lot.
game,
There's a lot.
where, like, I now vaguely remember there being, like, this big underground it's not a mine, maybe, but it's like this cavern, and there was, like, water in it, and, like, it's like, it, like, kind of like Water Temple feels from Ocarina of Time kind of thing.
All of that was
And
the lower sections of the game.
yeah, and,
All
like, it
the
had almost this, like,
abandoned aircraft
kind
hangar
of like
aesthetic.
Fallout a little bit.
Very
Like a
Fallout.
little bit of a Fallout aesthetic, a little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
And I now remembering that, I'm just like, oh wow, yeah. And I played the first Portal a bunch of times, kind of
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
I only played the second Portal once, I believe. Um, because I did feel, I think, at a certain point that it was tedious. The first one never felt tedious to me. And the second one, the second one stopped being about difficulty and started, to me, it felt like it's just started being about, like, okay, here's a time sink. You have to figure out what you have to do. And we're not going to give you clues. You just have to figure it out, which was like, of all the things I adore about King's Quest, Space Quest, stuff like that, that is the one element of it that I was just like, I wish they could have found a way to, like,
Not do that.
dampen that a little bit, because there's the whole thing. Eventually, like, you do encounter these situations where there's just frustration because you're not in any active danger and you cannot figure out what the hell you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And there are no clues. Even my pick for the greatest game of all time, is guilty of that at one point in its game. When, you just have to figure out that you're supposed to, like, kind of just walk to Gonzaga kind of thing in Final Fantasy VII in the open world after you cross into Costa del Sol or whatever it is. And and I still haven't played Rebirth because it hasn't come out for the computer yet. But, like, yeah, and you're just like, I remember when I was playing the very first time on PlayStation, I ended up in Nibelheim in all of that, which was like, 4 zones ahead of where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because there's just no instruction. Yeah. There's no there aren't even clues, kind of thing. Yeah. And that's when you provide no clues, that's a problem. As a game.
I hear you. I loved Portal 2 all the way through. I was completely engaged by it. And I really enjoyed it. It was the first modern video game that I played to completion.
Wow, okay. Even, are you not counting original Portal?
I've never played it. I played like a couple levels of original.
Oh, well, original Portal is beautiful. I highly recommend it.
This problem that I'm having with my headset has finally.
I still hear you.
Okay, great.
I still hear you just fine.
Yeah. So, I need a new cable.
I'm pretty comfortable with what we've discussed. I think at this point we've fleshed out enough of the details where we could actually, like, commence development, kind of thing.
So, any thoughts on what you want to do next week?
Oh boy.
I feel like I pushed you into Portal.
Say again?
I pushed you into Portal, so I feel like I didn't give you the chance to choose a game. So
it's not like, well, the thing is like, I don't know if I have any, like, really good picks right now.
Let me take a quick look here.
I mean, okay, well, you know what? I'm not saying that we have to do it.
Yeah. Because
we have kind of been trending into the out of the RPG format, which is like, look, adapting RPGs into movies is dope and awesome, but it's also, like, it's tentpole-y,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're all going to be massively high budget,
Yeah.
and they have a story that we don't have to try and like kind of distill for ourselves, kind of thing. We
Yeah.
have a lot of the tools in place, so it's like, we could do awesome RPGs. Like it'd be like, how fun would it be to do like Banjo and Kazooie at some point, kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But I do kind of like that we have leaned into a little bit of like kind of the dungeon crawler space a little bit.
Okay.
Are you familiar with a game called Noida?
Yes.
Noida is my pick for the hardest game ever made.
Okay. We'll do Noida.
And I am a kid. I was a kid who, when I was a kid, before I really knew much about the scope of what video games can be,
Yeah.
could be back then and can be, kind of thing. Dungeon crawlers were the holy grail, right? I mean, I grew up like, I could have spent thousands of hours as a child playing Castle of the Winds, which I've talked about with you in the past. I know you're not familiar with that game, but I could have spent thousands of hours playing that game. Noida is a game that is uniquely seeded every time you start a new game.
Everything.
However, you can write down the seed number and pick your seed. It has that option if you choose to. And this the best thing about Noida is its optionality, right? There are things in it that will appease the completionists. There are things in it that will appease the speedrunners. There are things in it that will appease the people who just want to play the main line of a video game and not worry about all of the Easter eggs and side quests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The game is different every time you play it. The worlds are procedurally generated, even though they are not infinite in their architecture. So there are people who are like, for lack of a better term, like PhDs in Noida, kind of thing, who just like, it is the only thing that they do.
Yeah.
And so one of the cool things is that the world, it's a top and bottom world. Okay. So you start on the surface and you are led by nature of just gameplay to go down into the depths and the dungeon. Okay. However, if you have, extremely high end game level runs, if you survive to an extremely high like level end game run, you can also go up. And there is like a mirrored dungeon in the sky called Heaven. There is also a mirrored dungeon beneath the initial dungeon called Hell. But there is an entirely impenetrable lake of lava you have to be able to actually bypass through things that you acquire in the game, be they, perks, which are like, trait abilities or equipment or whatever, that you actually can. I have actually explored Hell in a couple runs I've had in my life. The great thing about Noida is that there is no checkpointing. None whatsoever. You can save and quit. You may not save and keep playing and go back to a save point. If you die, you're dead. It's like nightmare mode in Diablo 2.
Yeah.
And you have to start all the way over from the beginning, and unless you pick the same seed, the game will be different.
Yep.
When you do it. Every single pixel in the game can be interacted with. And this is kind of like how we were talking about at a point when you were kind of telling me about Star Citizen, which is like, well, like at what point, the customization of a game comes down to at what level of physics can you interact with the matter of the game, right? Where it's like, if you can interact with the matter on a quantum level, you're God and you're in the universe, kind of thing.
Yep.
If you can interact with things on an atomic level, like you can't break the rules of the universe, but within those rules, you can do anything you want.
Right.
And then it's like molecular is chemistry and geology. It's all the sciences they're just dealing with different orders of scale. Noida is a game where you can essentially operate at like the atomic level kind of thing,
Okay.
where you can't change the rules of the world, but within the rules of the world, you can almost do anything you want. Um, like there's like alchemy is a big thing in Noida, and it's different. The recipes for like, some of the recipes are the same. Like if you dump water into toxic sludge, it always turns it into water, kind of thing.
I
I
see.
mean, applies the toxic sludge into water. But there are also secret recipes for secret things in the game, like Draft of Midas, which is like you pour out a little bit, everything it touches turns to gold. So there's that, and then there's like then there's like lively concoction, which is like one of the only potions in the game that can heal you, kind of thing. Um, and the recipes for creating those things are unique to every single seed, and so like you can't just figure them out. Sometimes you just come across them by luck, as some of these things are. The world has boundaries to the east and west, but you can break through those boundaries, kind of thing. Beyond them are parallel worlds, which generate infinitely. And so the point of me saying all of this is that there are players in the game who will do certain things, be like, all right, how many parallel worlds can we actually go into before the game crashes?
Yeah.
Because the game because of how it's procedurally generated, it doesn't forget what's already generated.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you generate too many worlds, and there's just the memory can't handle it, kind of
Yeah.
thing. The game crashes, and they have ascertained that it is actually, I believe it's exactly 255, which makes perfect sense if you understand coding because of how hexadecimal works, kind of thing. On the 256th, like I guess it's just because that's the new exponential layer of recursion. The game crashes on it's either 256 or 257, I think. But just like, and it's so cool to like see the game get buggier and buggier and buggier the further out you go, because like really there's no need to go out that far. Like the most number of parallel worlds I've ever been out is like a dozen or so, because there's no need to go further than that. You're at that point you're just resource farming.
Yeah.
But it is an outrageously complex and difficult game. It is it honestly, I think it should,
Okay.
if you're ever going to have a conversation about greatest games ever made and you're not at least including Noida in the conversation, you don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, greatest games ever made, though. I mean, to me, that's
Yeah.
like you're saying Noida, chess, Go, and soccer. Like,
Oh, I'm specifically talking about like electronically,
okay.
UI video games kind of thing, right? Yeah, like clearly, chess is the greatest game ever invented by man.
I think
Like,
chess and Go are.
I would put chess ahead of Go only for the reason that the more I learn about chess, the more I'm like, this game shouldn't be able to exist. It's so complex that it should fall. The level of complexity of chess is so vast and so far and above and beyond any other game that exists in the world that I'm like, this shouldn't exist. The fact, like, this is an accident. Like the invention and the discovery of the modern rules of chess has to have been a happy accident, because it's so complex and it doesn't have flaws in its complexity. Whereas Go is, yes, don't get me wrong, Go is absolutely genius and masterful in its existence. But at the end of the day, there's only one kind of piece. There's just the stones.
Yeah.
And chess has 5 different types of pieces, and they all have their own set of rules.
Yeah.
Like en passant, who the hell we know the French invented en passant, otherwise it wouldn't be a French name. But like, the fact that it's actually a good rule is crazy if you think about it. Castling is a good rule. Whereas like if you look at something like baseball, right? And you look at like the rules of like ground rule, double rules.
Yeah.
Some of them are very good rules. Some of them are just outrageous, and it's like why? Why is this a rule?
Yep.
Like my favorite, I'll tell you my favorite one of those in football, right? Which is like I have no understanding why this is a rule. If the team in possession of the ball fumbles the ball through the opponent's end zone, it's the opponent's ball on a touchback. I don't know. Are you familiar with the rules of football at all? Do you understand anything that I just said?
Yeah, I do.
If you fumble the ball through your own end zone, it's a safety. Opposing team gets 2 points on the ball. That makes sense to me because it's in line with all of the other rules of football kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you are on your opponent's 1 yard line, you have marched all the way down the field, and you are running the ball toward their end zone, and you fumble the ball, and it goes out of bounds at the 1 yard line, it's your ball at the 1 yard line.
Yep.
But if you fumble the ball and it bounces into the end zone and then goes out of bounds, for whatever reason, it is now the opponent's ball on their 20 yard line.
The only reason, half the rules of football, and I agree with you, half the rules of football exist to make the TV more interesting.
That's not a rule that does that, though. Everyone unanimously hates that rule. And yet, they won't change it. And I believe the only logic I have ever been able to unearth on as to why that's a rule is to actively discourage teams from trying to fumble forward into the end zone and recover it for a touchdown.
Oh, I see.
That is the only thing I can think of. But really, if you want to gamble with that, you should be allowed to gamble with that because that's such a stupid thing to do. As it is. It's the same thing as like on 4th down, the rule is if you fumble on 4th down, even if you recover the ball, the play is dead at the point of the fumble. Now that one I understand because way back in the day, I want to say it was the 60s, but it might have been the 70s, the Raiders ran this play called the Holy Roller, which is they were like 4th and I don't know, 3, 4th and 4 or something like that. And, back in the day, passing wasn't really a thing. It was just you ran the ball. And they were running the ball, and the runner was stopped, like short, and you can't forward lateral, right? You can only lateral backwards. But so the runner was stopped, and so what did he do? He bowled the football forwards, right? Because it was 4th down. He was getting stopped. They were going to lose possession anyway. So he fumbled it forwards. Whereas, if the ball was recovered beyond the 1st down marker by the Raiders, good for them. And if not, it wasn't like they were losing anything. It was a free roll, essentially. Yeah. So that rule makes sense. That rule I understand. But no team is ever going to do that going into the opposing end zone.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is a situation where it makes sense. But the number of situations where it makes absolutely no sense to have that rule compared to the, maybe the one single situation where it does make sense to do that, it's got to be worse than 100 to 1. So that rule makes absolutely no sense. And this is the thing. This is why I say that chess is the greatest game ever invented by man, is because chess has a ton of these just really obscure, what the hell is this rules, but they all are good rules. And the game is just so outrageously complex, and it has no bad rules.
We're doing Noida next week.
We're doing Noida next week.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to say chess the movie.
I think we will end up doing that at some point.
Chess the movie.
It's going to happen.
Oh my god.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Thank you.
But anyway,
thank you for watching, whoever's out there in the internet ether. Thank you very much for watching this.
Yeah, I think it might be this bot. I don't know, but if it's not this bot, thank you very much.
It isn't. It isn't the bot. I can confirm that.
All right, awesome, awesome sauce.
Noida next week, and thank you for being here, Greg. Thank you to everybody who catches this on YouTube or on Twitch later this week.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. Thank you, everyone. No, I got nothing else. Like I said, I think we came up with some good ideas for Portal. I think we understand. Obviously, now that we know that there's actual lore that places this post 1980s, we couldn't do it. Period. But
It's still period. I mean, it still works, and
Yeah,
it gets that sense of like it's not corporate America isn't as well understood
right.
as it is today.
Absolutely.
All
So,
right.
well, thank you, everyone. Yeah, we'll catch you next week.
Absolutely. I don't know what the streaming plan is for tomorrow yet. I think I'm probably going to end up on a deadline, but if anybody wants to check it out, there's a good chance I'll be on at noon doing game dev, or not. But follow the socials, and I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, have a great weekend, everybody.